Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close, I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving value's contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Okay, it's great to have everybody here. By the way, I have two of my favorite people on today, just so you guys know. I like both of these guys. I think both of them were very, very important in the 2024 election that took place. There was plenty of moments with Chris being all over the place with his commentary, whether it was at the DNC calling everybody out, whether it's calling out the candidates, whether it's being fair, having a moment with J.D. Vance and Trump calls in, whether it's the phone call after the assassination attempt. I think Chris was a mensch in the 2024 election that took place. It was great watching you, the work you did with News Nation. Phenomenal work you guys did out there. I applaud you and the group. And then on Charlie Kirk, I have a list, and we're trying to put this list together, and I need your help to see where you would put this guy. Because one thing about Charlie, you guys got to know, I'm going to reveal something he loves. I've never met anybody in my life that loves compliments more than Charlie. Charlie may be number one in compliments. So if you're watching this, go on Twitter, give Charlie a compliment. Say, Charlie, we love you. You're amazing. You're this, you're that. But I made a list, and here's what the list was. The top 10 influencers in Trump getting elected in 2024, okay? I have Musk as one. And then from there, I don't have a ranking. The only one that I have as one, I think it's Musk. Musk coming out and doing what he did. Everybody else. I have Tucker, played a very important role with the alliance. I have Dana behind closed doors doing what he did to rally. I have Rogan. What he did the last week was monumental for him to get the independent voters. I have Tulsi. I have Bobby. I have Vivek. I have J.D. Vance in a big way. J.D. played a very important role because I was a doubter myself at first. I'm like, you had many different options. Why him? And then he won everybody over, including myself. I'm just being open about it. I can't believe how talented and capable he is. Laura Trump, I got Barron, and I got Charlie. And Charlie Kirk, to me, I have it in top 10, but I have you in my top 5. But I think, folks, over the next decade, 2, 3, 4, 5 decades to come, I think Charlie's going to be one of the most top 3, sometimes 1 or 2, most formidable voices in politics for decades to come. And by the way, criticize me for it. Say stuff, but stick around. You'll see what this guy's going to be doing. I'm watching his TikTok account when he's going out there sitting with kids and challenging them and bringing other people, and you're having those conversations. And then the debates, the conversations you're having with people that want to challenge you, going to the youth. People don't want to do that. People are waiting for them to come to him. Charlie's going to them. Incredible job you've done the last 12 months. I gave you a compliment last week, and I gave it on the podcast with Laura as well. It's great to have both of you guys on the podcast today.
Thank you, PBD.
Nice to meet you, Charlie.
You too, man.
It's the first time you guys are meeting,
Yes.
right? So I just want you to know, guys, when before camera, we're acting right now. They were fighting. They were cursing each other out. It was the first time I heard Charlie drop the F-bomb to Chris. I'm like, Chris, Charlie, hold back a little bit, bro. Like, don't bring out the gangster in you. But no, I'm actually being sarcastic. But we're going to have a civil conversation and a debate here today. While we're going through it, I have a lot of issues that I want to cover. 5 things you need to know about Susie Wiles, political. I want to know more. You guys can educate me. Who is she? What has she done? I know the Summerall father, all this stuff. All the appointees, all the names that's coming out, right? You know, you got Lee Zeldin, Marco Rubio, Lisa Stefanik, Mike Walsh, Don, all these Homan, Tom Homan, all these names that are coming out. Stephen Miller, I think, was even announced last night, if I'm not mistaken.
On the policy side, not the cabinet side.
So I want on the policy side, and I want to hear all those things as we go through it. Powell, can Trump fire Powell? Powell said, "I'm not stepping out no matter what happens." That's another discussion. And the Fed must talk about the FEMA. What happened over there with FEMA? The conversations that FEMA's got to report directly to the president, not to some other institution or not other. We'll talk about that as well. Pentagon officials discussing how to respond if Trump issues controversial orders. A host, one of the pundits on CNN responded to it. I want to play that clip for you. Young voters. I'm going to talk about Barron. I want to talk about the CNN guests clashing in a heated debate over transphobia, which was very weird to me. We'll talk about that. Mark Cuban apparently deleted some of his pro-Kamala Harris tweets. You did a phenomenal show that one night with him, with Dana White, with all those guys. So I want your thoughts on that. Bitcoin, the results, what's happened since Trump got elected, oil industry. Harris's campaign, some numbers came out about how much they paid Beyonce, how much they paid all these guys. If that's true, again, I want to get your thoughts on that. Rogan saying Harris's campaign wanted topic restrictions for interview, and then a few other things that Elon apparently knew way before it was done, and then China issues warning to Trump. Anyways, these are all the things I got. But listen, I wanted to make sure we take a moment to recognize somebody. I think this is very important because even though Kamala lost, we wanted to take a moment and create some merch on her behalf because I know it matters to her. Rob, if you can, because listen, right now it's what? What is today? Right now it's November. Can you give me the date, Rob? It's the 12th today, right? Thanksgiving's around the corner. Christmas is around the corner. There was a moment that Kamala was uncomfortable saying Merry Christmas. She wanted to say Happy Holidays. Rob, can you play this clip? Go ahead and play this clip for the audience. Go ahead.
And when we all sing happy tunes and sing Merry Christmas and wish each other Merry Christmas, these children are not going to have a Merry Christmas. How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
Okay, you can pause it right there. So guess what? I want to say Merry Christmas this Christmas. Very simple. And if you are confident enough to say it as well, we had a very deep discussion because not everybody that works here is Christian. We said, listen, guys, we want to create merch that's very bold, that says Merry Christmas with maybe some scripture in it. Let's see if we have an audience for it. Pat, I don't know if it's a good idea and all this other stuff. That's what I stand for. You want it, great. You don't want it, I totally get it. But if you're watching this and you want to get a Merry Christmas hat, you go to Starbucks and you got the sun. I just want to see the reaction. You smile. You go to work, you got a Merry Christmas hat, you got to take that hat off, right? Hey, you want another hat here. You want some of the ugly sweaters that we have here, Rob. Can you show some of the stuff that we got here? You want to get some of the stuff for your kids, shirt, future looks bright, Merry Christmas gear is officially here. And if you're bold enough to do it and order it, and again, you place any orders of this, we're going to put some future looks bright ornaments in the order for you, limited edition custom that we have for the first 100 that place the order. If you're bold enough and you're comfortable going out there telling people Merry Christmas and you're a valuetainer that believes the future looks bright, go place an order and let's make some people uncomfortable or comfortable this Christmas with saying Merry Christmas. Having said that, let's get right into it. Charlie, and by the way, we can go to VT Merch to place the order. I'm coming to you first. It's the night. Everyone's doing the live. You call in. I say, Chris, where you at? I think it's over. Rasmussen, Mitchell calls in. I think it's over, right? The moment that you knew it was over, there's a clip of you, right? And if you want to play this clip, Rob, on what happened here. I see this clip. I loved it because it's so organic and you don't want to do it, but it's just happening and your team caught it. Rob, can you play this clip of Charlie reacting to the results?
Fox News decides Donald Trump is president of the United States. We've got our republic back, folks.
Let's go.
There it is.
Everybody should remember this moment. Look, I'm gonna echo Charlie from earlier. Remember where you were when this happened. Remember where you were when you realized that the Uniparty and all of these, just the establishment, you said it's time to actually participate, and look what you guys have done.
And if anyone deserves to get tears in his eyes, it's Charlie. I think we all agree.
I think Erica was chopping some onions or something in the break room.
No one has worked harder than Charlie for this.
We gotta hear some words here from you, Charlie. You put all this together, my man. Let's hear it.
I am just humbled by God. It's all God. It's all God. God alone. God alone.
You can pause it, Rob. Charlie, what's going through your mind?
Yeah, well, from January 2021 to that moment, we dedicated our entire life to get Donald Trump back to the White House. I want people to remember the context of that. That was after January 6th. Donald Trump was basically in political exile, and we dug out of what would be the greatest political hole in modern American history. And especially this last year and a half, everything was just coming through me from not just how hard the president worked, but how hard we worked. I mean, we traveled the country nonstop, didn't see my family, did events in every corner. President was facing 700 years in federal prison. They tried to take his business empire away from him. And then, of course, he got shot and nearly shot again at the golf course. And there was this kind of feeling as like, is this possible? Are we going to do this? And, going into election night, we're almost built in with kind of this paranoia that there's no way this is actually going to materialize. And I believe it was a God thing. I believe that it's God shining his grace on this great country, and is just overwhelmed in that moment. It still really hasn't set in, to be honest.
Charlie, to the average person that's watching this, we know some of the stories that have come out from the moment it was announced that he's won. What events have taken place the last few days? I'm talking Qatar, Hamas. What events have taken place just in the first week?
Well, it's incredible. And by the way, I've been at Mar-a-Lago helping with some of the transition stuff too, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I mean, just number one, a caravan has already broke itself up coming to on the U.S. southern border. Qatar has told Hamas, "You're no longer welcome in the as kind of a vacation spot for terrorist hotbed." The European Union has announced that they are now going to buy LNG, liquefied natural gas, from America, not from Russia any longer. We're also seeing an attempt, at least, of conversation to end the Russian-Ukrainian war. We've seen Bitcoin hit an all-time high at $87,000. The market has a huge surge, largely just based on the confidence. I think it's also hit an all-time high, largely based on Trump's victory. And this is all just not these things are signals based. They're effects based on signals of the president basically saying, "I'm coming back, and we're going to fix this thing, and we're not going to allow business as usual to continue."
So, Cuomo, for you, I mean, we've been talking for, a year, 2 years regularly. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Going in, at what point were you like, this is over, this guy's going to be winning?
Well, look, we had the benefit of Decision Desk HQ. That is a very formidable tool. The differentiator in the media was not the basis of information for making the call. I think it was about preference for some. Nobody's in a rush to call an election, Pat, because there's very little upside to being first. For instance, in the clip, Charlie's listening there, or the group is listening, and they say Fox News. We called it first. But he's listening to Fox, so when Fox says it, there's not a real big upside to being first. What's relevant to me, you just don't want to be wrong, okay? That's why, guys, when the momentum was hitting you during your event, which is amazing, by the way, and I love that it came off as successfully as it did. It was a really important thing. We need more of those. They said, slow down. But you're like, but how much of the vote is still out? Slow down. There's no reason for us to be wrong. So that's usually the guiding. That said, I believe outlets waited to call the race because they didn't want Trump to win. And News Nation didn't have a preference. So we just wanted it to be right. And I did have a special interest in it being over. I think a fair appraisal is I wasn't worried about what would happen if Trump won in terms of how the Democrats would react. I was worried about how Trump would react. I was worried that there were a lot of people who would say, but the polls were so close. And I'm sure that there's a chance that he would have said something provocative, and then who knows where we would have gone.
Did you expect it to be the landslide victory?
No. And I love that now everybody's explaining why it happened, how it happened.
Right.
It's so easy after the fact. Look, the polls weren't wildly off. He just won by a small margin in a lot of areas, and she underperformed. The reason Trump won was because the Democrat, other than the themes and all the stuff that we can talk about, the ideas behind the motivation, the Democrats underperformed. Now, they'll argue with me. No, we didn't, because Trump may have won, but we won this Senate race and we won all this. Well, look, you lost the Senate, you lost the House, you lost the White House. That's underperforming, okay, any way you want to look at it. So I didn't know. I had said for months I believed it was Trump's race to lose. And I worded it that way on purpose because it was a grievance election. It's about how people felt about their pocketbooks and overlays of how they felt about cultural norms. So in that environment, it's harder for an incumbent. And she was a compromised incumbent. Now, I said it was his to lose, not Trump's going to win, not because I was sitting on the fence, because Trump is such a polarizing figure that he could have overwhelmed the momentum of the movement behind him. But he didn't. And he won. So I wasn't surprised.
I mean, for you, as a big Trump supporter yourself, were you happy with the results?
I was happy that there was a definitive, quick result. I am not a fan.
Would we be surprised?
Yeah.
If we knew who you voted for? would we be surprised if we could see who you voted for?
I probably shouldn't tell you, but I can tell you who I voted for. You want to know?
Yeah.
I voted for my brother. I wrote him in.
Are you joking?
No.
100%.
100%. I'll show you the picture. Here. We'll verify it in real time.
Are you joking?
No. No. No, I'm not joking. He didn't win, by the way.
Did you really vote for?
I'll show you. I'll show you why.
Well, you know who your brother voted for. He showed it as well. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Can I show this?
Huh?
Can I show it?
No, because I think it might have been illegal that I took a picture.
Oh, okay,
so let's just pretend it happened.
No, it never happened. I'm looking at his family picture. Beautiful dog. Your daughters look great, by the way, in that picture.
But look, I was...
Really?
What I was happy about was that it ended and that it was definitive.
But why didn't you vote for
have to have any
Kamala, though?
drama.
Why didn't you vote for Kamala?
Listen,
Your brother voted for Kamala.
He's a Democrat, so he does what he does. My feeling is this. America can do better than these two candidates.
Does he know you voted for him?
Yeah.
You told him?
Yeah.
What did he say to you? You wasted your vote? Did he say something like that or no?
No, he just, was like, yeah. That's what
Was
he says
it kind
about
of
most
New
things.
York, who cares? Like,
Most
it doesn't
things.
matter? Was it kind of like that or?
Yeah, no, he just was like, yeah, he had other things he wanted to talk about. But look, the point for me is I'm not a Trump fan, okay? And I'm not a Democrat. I think this country can do better. I think that the movement behind Trump is very real.
Yeah.
It's been disrespected. And I think that's problematic for America. I just think we can do better. I mean, don't fault Charlie for campaigning and believing in Trump. I don't. I think it's very healthy for the democracy. I don't have problems with people who see him as a problem and wanted somebody else. I get it. To me, I just believe the choices are beneath the standard of American leadership. I think we have way better people to pick from.
Let me ask a question for Charlie, for you. You've been in this sport for a while, the sport of politics, and it is a sport. Let's face it; it's very competitive, and sometimes the way it competes, it's not a touchdown; it's events, right?
Sure.
How have you, for somebody that's been in this space, viewed the evolution? He may not say this, but from the viewer side, from Cuomo 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, today.
Well, I think it's awesome. I mean, I don't really care what Chris Cuomo's politics are. I think that it takes someone who loves truth to go to the DNC and remind the viewers that all those boxes up there are bought by corporate titans. I thought that was really good. And look, I think that I don't know Chris very well, but it seems as if Chris has a knack to actually do what journalists used to do, increasingly so. And I mean, you had this great video that someone sent me where you explained why Trump people were voting for Trump and they wanted to hire somebody for a dirty job. I'm paraphrasing, but I thought that was really smart. And look, I don't expect everyone in media to go vote for Donald Trump. I actually think it's awesome that you didn't vote for Kamala Harris, which is super refreshing because that's like the automatic entry point, right?
Yeah.
But look, I don't want to get into Chris Cuomo's career. There are some things during COVID I certainly didn't love, but that is what it is. However, Chris, I think it's great that you came out and you talked about the vaccine, that it didn't necessarily deliver on its promises. I thought that was terrific.
Well, it absolutely didn't.
But thank you for doing that, because so many people would hold back on that because they're afraid of being called all these terrible names.
Look, I get it, and I do believe there are some risks. One of the reasons I'm a big fan of Pat, I just love you as a guy, and to me, that's kind of the end of the analysis, because just everything else just doesn't matter as much. When you see someone, and Pat talks about this a lot. I haven't seen you with your wife. I haven't seen you with your kids. I haven't seen you with your people. But once I get a feel for you there, everything else is kind of secondary. It's like, well, it can be as weird as like Jets Patriots. Well, he grew up in a place where they were Jets fans, so he just likes to lose. Everything becomes secondary. And what my concern is for what we're doing is I don't believe there's any evolution in self any more than just natural. Now, I'm the ghost of Christmas future for you. You're in your early 30s. I'm in my early 50s. This is what happens to you. You just keep evolving and changing. My concern is that we've become so sensitive to the criticism and the gotchas. It's become such a commodity that what I love about what he's doing at Valuetainment is that there are a number of people who will tune in, Charlie Kirk, Chris Cuomo, thinking that like, I'm going to try to lift you over my head at some point, And I get that that's a commodity, but I also think it's really toxic to us because every time they do a poll of real people, we know what they say. 7 out of 10 of them say they share common interests. Where's that? You don't make money off that on social
that
media.
doesn't sell.
But that's what we need to get back to. It's not fair. Like, there are people blowing me up right now. I guarantee it. My phone's probably getting hot. You normalize Charlie Kirk. You normalize Pat. Well, first of all, who's to say that they're not the normal ones and they're normalizing me, right? So, and what is wrong with sitting with people and talking about where you agree, where you disagree, and why?
By the way, this is the part. I don't know the folks at News Nation. You always speak very highly of them.
Yeah.
Camera on or off. The fact that you're talking vaccine, that is also part that he can do it while you're representing a News Nation. So kudos to them. Where maybe you couldn't do it being at a different outlet. Now, you may defend him now and say, yeah, I could still do it at CNN, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if during that time they would have let that,
News Nation is different. Okay, the guys who own it are much more transparent. It's a public company,
it's Daystar, right?
And Nexstar.
Oh, that's right.
And they are much more transparent in terms of how they feel about things, but they do give me more leeway with the brand. See, the difference is, it's not that, and you don't have to agree, but I was there, and it wasn't that CNN. It's like you had a meeting like this. They told me what to say. That's not what it was. But the brand was bigger than you.
It was more an email.
It was in the corner. It was the brand was bigger than you. So you had to respect the fact that you can't come on and say, hey, I had a good time talking to Charlie Kirk. We don't agree about some stuff. I don't know why he says some things. He doesn't know what. And that's what it was. He's got cute kids. That would have been like, you got to be careful because now you're speaking for all of CNN.
But I will tell you, I think the show that you did with News Nation with Dana, Cuban, all those guys, I think that was successful. I think
it was great.
Getting all the
that was the model. Yeah, and I
love that model.
I wanted you involved in that. I'm a big booster of yours because I believe that, and it's not about what your political aspirations are and the stupid rule that you can't be president because you didn't live here. I mean, if there was one thing that I could change, it might not matter to people, but it does to me. In a nation of immigrants, you can't be one and be president. It's kind of weird, but you have an organic following because of what you've achieved in your life. Then you have another level to your following because of what people resonate with in you as a person. Then comes your politics. That is what we need more of. I respect that this guy did it. Oh, I vibe with him, with how he is. Oh, and yeah, I think those ideas make sense. That's what we got to get back to. Now it's inverted. It's inverted.
Yeah, but the market is speaking. The market. Rob, can you pull up Kirk's TikTok account? If you just pull up Kirk's TikTok account,
do you dance a lot on the TikTok?
I very rarely.
If you pull up his TikTok, I just want to show this real quick.
The TikTok story is crazy,
and I want you to talk about this, Rob. Yeah. Just do me a favor. Let's go through some of the clips, okay? All right. So 10 million.
If you go to popular, it's the best way to do because this is all recent election.
Go to the right. Go all the way to the right.
Yeah.
Okay, so check this out. Look at this here. Zoom in a little bit, Rob, if you could.
49. 50 million. Let's be honest. 50 million.
37. Keep going. 13.8, 22.6, 23. Keep going, Rob.
This is just in the last month.
22, 21.7, 23.6, 20, 16.4. Go a little lower. 9.2, 8.5, 14.3. 60 million views on a daily basis, okay, while you're going through this. Now, Charlie, there's Instagram. That's a different audience. Mm-hmm. There's YouTube, different audience. You got radio, syndicated, different audience. You got Rumble, different audience. X, different audience. TikTok. When you're in the streets or you go places and people say, I watch your stuff on radio. I watch your stuff. I listen to your stuff on radio. I watch you on YouTube. I watch you on Instagram.
Gotta be TikTok.
How often do you hear TikTok?
TikTok is 80% of the
unbelievable.
And, I hang out in the streets a lot. That's what I'm for. No, but let me say a couple of things on TikTok. I'm blown away by this. And look, we do a lot on social. We do a lot on podcasting, and praise God, the podcast is doing really well. So we were trying to get.
By the way, he's being modest. It's a top 5 podcast on Apple and Spotify right now while we're speaking. Right now, if you look at him, he's top 5 Apple and top 5 Spotify. Please continue.
Thank you. Yeah, and so we've been trying to get on TikTok for a while. And TikTok had a censorship regime that was very sensitive to topics that we would discuss on campus. And we kind of just said, forget it. Well, it's interesting. And I have a whole theory that October 7th was the event that led to the end of the Democrat Party. And I could lead it through 4 or 5 different examples. And I think Chris would actually agree with this because it's just an objective analysis, not a partisan one. And the buried lead of the October 7th was that it got TikTok banned. And remember, the TikTok ban stalled based on just China concerns. But TikTok was the hub of a lot of the anti-Israel sentiment that was brewing with Gen Z. And then all of a sudden the TikTok ban got resurfaced. Mitt Romney said at a security conference, we are banning TikTok because it is sowing anti-Israel sentiment in the United States. So TikTok gets banned. And our team, we had this idea like, hey, TikTok is in a place where they don't want to get banned with an incoming administration. Let's send out a tweet saying, hey guys, let's do one more chance. If you treat us fairly, we'll become TikTok's like biggest right-wing fan, right? And I will and they reached out and they were great. They said, here are our rules. We will transparently enforce them. Again, they're very, very sensitive if you talk about trans stuff. It's like incredibly, right? Even if you do it diplomatically. And we said, great. So again, this is all transparent. It's all public. There's no like backroom deal. And so we started posting my old college discussions there because I've been doing this for 12 years where we just have open dialogues. And we started to get 5 million views a day, 6 million views a day, and 10 million views a day. And so over the summer, I said, well, what if this election season, I do like 25 campus stops and we kind of create these open air discussions and they might go viral, especially on TikTok, that could influence a lot of people to view the election the way obviously I want them to view it. And yeah, look, on TikTok alone, it was 1 billion views in 90 days. It's like 60 to 80 million views a day. And that sounds like a number, but all of a sudden, here's what was amazing. It was the most effective way I ever reached the working class in my career. The muscular class, janitors, waiters, waitresses, Uber drivers, police officers, firefighters. Even more so than YouTube and Instagram, for whatever reason, something about TikTok really reaches people that Donald Trump was trying to win 10 or 15% more of. And final thought I'll make on this. It's the most diverse audience that I'm talking about Black, Hispanic, Asian, young. And I'll just tell one story. I was in Vegas about to speak and there were a bunch of, waiters and waitresses coming up asking for pictures, all Hispanic, all Asian American, Pacific Islander that saw me on TikTok and they're like, thank you, you connected dots, I think. And it is a form of entertainment, what we do on TikTok, because it's ideas that are kind of colliding. And so praise God, if you would have told me a year ago that we'd have like one of the largest TikToks out there in conservative media and all politics, I would have said no way. And we can go whatever direction you want, Pat. But I believe without the horror and the tragedy on October 7th and the events that came subsequent, I don't know if we would have had the success on TikTok that we did.
There's a story that came out, Rob, if you can. Oh, there it is. So it's a Wall Street Journal story a few days ago. Young voters helped fuel Trump's win. Okay. So, and this was kind of interesting because one day I get a call from Vanity Fair and they're asking me about, what do you think about the fact that Barron Trump is getting all these podcast bros for his father to get on? And what do you think about that strategy and all this? I said, you're talking as if it's a bad idea on what he's doing. I'll read this to you. Young voters helped Trump fuel Trump's win. Trump's win included a 14-point lead among men under 30, a drastic 30-point shift from 2020 when Biden had a 15-point lead. For women under 30, Harris led by 18 points, a drop from 32 points in 2020. Nationally, 16% of voters were under 30, up from 13%, so 3+ in 2020, with Harris's support among them shrinking to just 6 points over Trump, 52 to 46. Economic issues dominated young voters' concerns, with 39% of young women and 42% of young men prioritizing jobs and the economy. Trump's campaign reached young voters through college events, TikTok. They're talking about you right here, and popular podcasts. Following advice from his son, Barron, who recommended appearance on platforms such as Aiden Ross, drawn hundreds of thousands of views. Now, Aiden, sure, gamer, all this stuff. But a lot of this, if I was to hear someone, like for example, a celebrity gets on, oh, wow, he was on Aiden. Great. Oh, my God, he was on Logan Paul and Mike Mallon. Great. Sure. Influence. Yeah, I can't believe Logan had him on. I get it. Jake actually broke down a 32-minute video to explain why he's voting. I think that translates. You get young voters to say, that's right. That doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. Chris, again, the sport of politics. how big you're in this space. You've been in it your entire life. Your father's a 2-term governor. Your brother's a governor. So it's not like you. How big of a deal was this for young voters to flip like this and be inspired to come out and vote for Trump?
So one of the rules in politics is do everything. Do everything. Be in yes mode. Go everywhere you can. Talk to anyone you can. That has become less and less popular as people seek their silo, right? Now, again, this is also evidence of underperformance. I'll start with saying bro vote, to me, I don't think is coming from a good place, by the way. I don't think...
We got to talk about that.
Defining it as bro vote, I see is
what does that mean? What does bro vote mean?
To me, I see it as a way of diminishing what resonates with young men. And I think it's a continuation of a very overt, intentional strategy of bringing down young men.
I don't get that.
Blaming them. Bro is, to me, it's
Oh, you think it's a pejorative?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a pejorative.
Okay.
And I'm okay with it.
Sure. Okay,
I don't see who's called bros. I get called that. You know, I'm 54 years old, you know, and
I see. So you think when people label that, they're trying to use it as a...
Oh, yeah. Because, it's never one of them.
I got it. So when they say these bro podcasts he's going on, like almost like, why would you waste your time getting on this podcast? I got it.
And it's a disrespect. It's an extension of how people in the media, not to speak for a whole group, obviously.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But you never hear anything good about Joe Rogan except his reach. Now, do I see Rogan as any kind of functional equivalent to either of you guys? No, because you're thought leaders. I may not agree with your thoughts. I may not, I may not want to echo your thoughts, but you're thought leaders. Joe has an amazing platform that you got to give him credit for having, where he has guys like you on it. That's the appeal. His audience is not independents. His audience breaks right, and that's fine. That's fine. But to be a pejorative and say these bros, like somehow it's bad to have young men wanting to vote for you, I think is a mistake. Trump did what you're supposed to do. He went everywhere. So should have Harris. Was Rogan going to be the same situation for her as for him? No. But that's the way it is. You know, when Donald Trump at some point decides to come on News Nation and sit down, it's not going to be like he's sitting down with Newsmax or Fox News. But you take it. The audience gets where you are.
He'll love it, though. That's the thing. He likes to be challenged if it's done from a good place in good faith.
Was he invited?
Oh, yeah.
No, as long as long as it's not
all
cheap,
the time.
If it's not cheap shots, though, he likes it.
I agree. Although he likes to deliver a cheap shot. By the way,
fair enough. But I think you'd do a good job if you came from a perspective of you want to make sure the American people have clarity on what he believes.
Right. My point is, look, I think he needs to sit down. Here's my feeling about it. Okay, let's move on. The Democrats have to process. The Republicans had to process in the midterms. Process. Figure it out. Figure out what you want. Don't get overwhelmed with blaming things as some kind of battle of agendas, which is what the left is doing. But that's their problem. We have to be focused forward. Trump should be talking about what he's going to do all the time.
Can I stay on this topic? I want to stay on this topic. And
sure.
I want to get your expertise on this topic. So the reason why I'm talking young voters, and we're staying here with the young voters topic, is I watch, Super Bowl. Like right now, it pisses me off that Cincinnati Bengals are 3-5. And they've lost most of their games by less than a touchdown, whatever. 35-34. Tom tells me their cornerbacks suck, and I'm like, okay, he's a number one quarterback right now in yardage, touchdown to interception. I think he's number one or number two in that. But they're 3-5. And they're not, the way they're playing right now, they're not going to do anything major. Now, in NFL, you could still make it to the playoffs and you could still be formidable later on. It's all about momentum. But one could watch a game and it could say, well, the differentiator in 2024 is XYZ. It's the running game. It's this. NBA, Cleveland Cavs are off to a 12-0 record. It doesn't matter when it comes down to the playoffs. In politics right now, a lot of events happened last 12 months. I remember a year and a half ago, I'm bringing guests here, and we're having different conversations. And a lot of people were still DeSantis. Mm-hmm. They were even uncomfortable to be pro-Trump. Mm-hmm. I would go to events, and guys were kind of like, whoa, you got to be comfortable. Don't be too pro-Trump because you're even losing the conservative vote. This was about a year and a half, 2 years ago that was happening. So you had to kind of be like, relax a little bit when you're being too.
Yeah, in primary mode.
Bring it down a little bit, right? But then in the last 12 months, specifically, if this is a sport in the last 12 months to both of you guys, what would you say were the defining moment where it flipped? And by the way, I'm not I'd like to see one from both of you guys, but also reasons. For example, Bobby's walkout. Okay,
We hosted that event.
I remember that. That was turning point.
Phoenix.
I remember. Was it an Amfest or was it a?
No, but come on, if you see those kind of pyrotechnics, you know who's
Your
doing
AV
it.
is insane. Yeah. So, but
That doesn't come ex nihilo. That's
well, you
come on, Pat. You know that's a
you
turning point.
realize we've been in the business of doing events for a while, and I would expect nothing less from a guy like you. I've been at your event. I see you in the back. The guy works like 24/7 at his event, running the whole show. He's phenomenal. But Bobby coming out, that alliance, Tulsi, Musk coming out, Musk's 2.1 billion impression on X, Rogan's podcast, assassination attempt, the younger voter going out there getting the TikTok folks. If you were to say a few of the events in 2024 that led to Trump making the greatest comeback of all time, what would you say that was?
I have to pick a couple. The first of which was Elon Musk's purchasing of Twitter. And I believe that for many reasons, because it allowed for...
You put that as one?
Yes.
I think I agree. I agree. Yeah.
I do. And the reason being is that you saw a national popular vote tilt a certain way, which is indicative that the entire country is consuming information differently.
Right.
This was not just a regional tilt. It's not just that Trump ran a better campaign in Pennsylvania, which he did. It's not just that we chased more votes in Arizona, which we did. It's that the whole country is consuming information that makes them view things differently. Now, you could say, oh, because it's inflation, all that. Sort of. But national public polling shows that there was this moment where the country started to care more about immigration. The country started to care more about what's happening in Ukraine. Public attitudes were changing, and I believe that is because we had a platform that finally allowed freedom of speech, because all the other ones were clamping down on it. So I think that's number one. And then number two, I think it would be the indictments of Donald Trump, starting which when the Rubicon was crossed, when Alvin Bragg indicted Donald Trump in New York for this ridiculous, just concocted pile of garbage that no one could explain. And Donald Trump was then viewed correctly as a martyr by his supporters and a sympathetic figure to the people who couldn't afford groceries. And for a regular person, the equation, the formula is built. I can't afford stuff that I used to, and the guy I've been told to hate is now facing prison time. That doesn't make sense to me. And so then what happened is that regular everyday people would go turn on the networks. They say, okay, help me understand this, MSNBC. Help me, because a lot of people would give the benefit of the doubt. They said, okay, and they heard nothing but he's a Nazi, he's a threat to democracy, and he must be locked up. And regular people didn't buy that. And then where did they go, PBD? X, to Twitter. And they saw a different story. And so I could keep on going. And then finally, the day, what day did Elon Musk endorse Donald Trump? July 13th, the day that Donald Trump got shot in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I believe the hand of God was on Donald Trump. I really do. I believe that it was 1 millimeter that, saved his life. But then Elon Musk going all in. You know this. I mean, I'm read Elon's book, the Walter Isaacson one. It's unbelievable. He's like a laser beam. When Tesla's not hitting its objectives, he sleeps on the floor of the Tesla factory, the Gigafactory, until it's done. If the rockets aren't getting up on time, he dedicates his whole life. If he wants Donald Trump to go to the White House, what did he do? He lived in Pennsylvania for 45 days straight and dedicated his fortune, his time, his energy like a laser beam. Nothing else mattered. And when you had that kind of focus from obviously the highest capacity person on the planet, coupled with Donald Trump, you're talking about a force multiplier, the likes of which that literally, in my opinion, saved civilization.
Chris, what would you say?
I like the phrase force multiplier. That's absolutely what social media is. I agree with your analysis about people using social media as much as any media now. Now, there's a problem with that because social media is not as reliable on a lot of levels. Independent media depends on the outlet, what the vetting is, what the structure is. But yes, that was a big factor. The social media component of the dialogue is very important. Chris Wallace leaving CNN to go start a podcast and like people saying, oh, this is a watershed moment. Well, no, it is. It depends what he does with his podcast.
And by the way, he's probably not going to do very well.
But I'm saying, right, because it could fade into, because what it has done very well, fringe and dissenting voices have done very well in that space.
Fringe don't as a pejorative.
Not as a pejorative.
Yeah.
People on the outside
Correct.
of the spectrum of thought.
Correct. Yeah.
Non-main party people.
Yes.
Okay. So what do I think? If I had to pick it, and I get why you mitigate it because it's more than this, but if I have to pick a pivot point, it was the inflation narrative. Because what happened was the left got caught in a space of trying to convince you that you weren't paying more for things and that wasn't really a problem. And that's a very tricky space. I would have a famous conservative come on every week named Bill O'Reilly. And his analysis would begin and end with the gas pump in the grocery store. And I'd say, yeah, but what about this? He said, gas is higher than it was. Groceries are higher, rent, mortgage, higher. There's your nut. That's your nut. And we haven't even included healthcare costs yet, which also went up. So when all of those things are worse now, and they're telling you that the guy where they were better is the problem, it doesn't compute. That's what I thought was a big pivot point. And of course, there are 100 other things that went into it. Jordan Peterson's right. There's never a single factor explanation for a complex situation. That to me,
but we can pinpoint causes set in motion for sure.
They couldn't get away from that reality.
Let me ask this question, Rob. Can you pull up the one clip on CNN where this guy is explaining men competing in women's sports? For me, I think one of the things, based on this was prompted based on what you guys are saying right now. One of the things is how terrible the argument of the left was for the last specifically 4 years. It's been bad for 8 years, but 4 years was a little bit ridiculous. So I'm watching this thing here. I'm like, okay, CNN, they're having a conversation about who to blame. And this guy is making a very, very logical. Last night, I'm at the training with my son in the soccer. It's 9 o'clock. I'm there with the two trainers. One guy comes up who's a agent. He's here from London. And another guy who's a guy that played for Miami and Inter Miami, and he's not somewhere else. We're standing there talking. Guy comes up to me. He's on the tennis field. He says, I know this voice. I said, yeah. He says, you're Patrick. I said, I am. He says, I watch you all the time. I said, that's great. He says, I don't agree with you. I said, really? Yeah. I said, tell me who you voted for. You said, I voted for Kamala. I said, really? Tell me why you voted for Kamala. He says, well, I just think Trump, he's just like, he's got the TDS. And I'm like, okay, fine. But when it came to family, he's talking to me with his 3-year-old son on his shoulder. And in this argument right here, you lose that guy. Where that guy sits there and says, I don't agree with this guy. Rob, can you go ahead and play this clip?
The families out there who don't believe boys should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen to you call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to interrupt. That's not how it is. They're not boys.
But watch what he says. Watch what she says to him.
I'm not going to sit there and listen to that.
Let's reset for a second because, look, this is a really heated issue, right? And sure, Michael, I know you. I know that you understand that people have different views on this.
So what?
I think out of respect for Jay,
out of respect to what?
Try to talk about this in a way that is respectful.
What do you mean?
So let me rephrase this since I'm being targeted here.
I don't. Just to be clear, you are not being targeted.
Of course he is.
I'm specifically saying that I know that you are not intending to be transphobic.
It's called common sense.
But
and science.
I'm not calling you transphobic. I'm saying you're using a phrase that you know.
So the way regular people interpret it,
that's not regular people. That's not regular people. There's no consensus that these are actually boys. This whole thing about trans girls is a canard. We're talking about a tiny, tiny sliver of the population.
That may be the
and we're using that
my point in terms
to take away
of its
healthcare from
effectiveness.
thousands of people.
Hold on, just get to your point.
My point in terms of its effectiveness. Regular people with children look at these things and they say, you know what? This is a bit too far. I do not agree with this. I don't like this. I think Democrats are going way too much to the left on social issues.
As exhibited by the interjection from Jay Michelson.
A lot of families believe that. You may disagree with that reality, but that's why Republicans kept running those ads over and over and over again.
Says.
Because they saw the metrics suggested that they were working.
In those ads over and over again and using rhetoric like you just used, saying this is boys playing girls sports.
It is.
First of all, we're talking about
it is.
people in the
You
entire
can pause
country.
So, Charlie, you've not seen it. So
no, that's
raw
remarkable.
reaction. Go ahead.
I mean, but rarely are you able to then see the contention and the point proved in one clip. So Shermichael is saying, one of the reasons why Democrats are failing is because boys are in women's sports. And the guy then says, no, you have to stop doing that. Now he was doing real-time speech police, real-time thought interruption of a very valid point, by the way, that Shermichael is making. And yes, let's just be very legitimate here. There are men in female sports. Just ask Riley Gaines. It is happening every single day. It's happening at the biggest possible level. It's happening even at the Olympics. It's happening all across the board. And it is something that Donald Trump's most effective political advertisement this cycle, and Susie Wiles deserves such credit for this and her entire team because they trust their instinct. It was a two-sequence ad. They did A and B. The first one is where they showed Kamala Harris sitting down with a trans activist in California where she was bragging that illegals got taxpayer-funded gender reassignment surgery. I mean, just like and bragging about it.
Yep.
Then they ran another ad of Charlemagne from the Breakfast Club reacting to that and basically saying, Kamala Harris is for they, them, Donald Trump is for you. And they went all in on that ad. Now, what is it about that ad? Of all the stuff.
I saw that on the Yankees game. I saw it on the playoffs game. It was everywhere.
But hold on a second. I got to disagree a little bit with Bill O'Reilly here, based on what you said. It wasn't just groceries and gas, because the Trump campaign spent $75 million on a non-grocery and gas, because that ad struck down to a chord that was Kamala Harris's weakness. She is this radical ideologue from California who will pander to foreigners, not Americans, with the most wild, abstract left-wing ideas, and then incorporated in that, oh, by the way, she's also for they, them. So anyone who's dealing with that kind of HR policing in the corporate life, it's kind of a little trigger. And they even said in the ad that Kamala supports men and female sports. I mean, it hit all the points in 30 seconds. And what did you just say, PBD? Where did they place that ad? The brilliance of the Trump campaign. They only ran it on NFL football and the World Series and male-dominated media. They didn't run that on Lifetime. And that's why Donald Trump did historically well with young male voters.
Yeah, look, this is a complex situation. It resonates easily. Having a black guy say it, Charlemagne the God was a force multiplier in that regard as well. But look, the Democrats lost because they underperformed. All right, that is a really important thing to remember, because what does that tell you? It tells you they didn't get their people out. When you look at where Trump grew, he grew obviously with people who didn't vote for him before. So something changed in this election that made people stay home, and some of them who did go out went out for him. I think the economics are a big part of that.
Of course. No, I'm just saying that's an example.
Yeah,
that it's
this
not
is
a complete picture, though.
Here's my problem with this issue, and I welcome this. I say all the time, you're not going to get a lot of parents to vote for you when you say it's okay that a guy my size is playing girls volleyball in high school. They don't like the idea. Okay. Does it happen a lot? No. Does it happen? Yes, obviously. We're talking about it. I am worried, though, that there is an offset on the issue, which is what happens most with the LGBTQ plus community.
You forgot IA.
IA. I have a problem with that. I get yelled at for this all the time.
Two-spirit.
Whatever it is, okay, I'm okay with all of it.
You got to get the whole thing.
I know, because I get yelled at when I don't, but I'm not missing it on purpose, okay? My point is this. What happens to them most...
It's so totalitarian.
Well,
it is, because if you miss the acronym, you're a hater.
That's right. That's a mistake. But two things can be true at once. What happens to that community most is that they're discriminated against. And I'm worried about the gay kid, the trans kid that is living in a real profound state of fear, and people are hurting them. That happens a lot. Now, is the correction...
What are you talking about, Chris?
Listen, people target those people. And they get bullied, they get beat up.
Christians too. People get bullied because they're fat and overweight, or they talk funny.
True, but they more with these kids. And I'm just worried about what you do to them. I agree with the argument. Males and female sport doesn't make any sense.
But in this context, Chris, it's only trans. He's not talking about gay or lesbian.
I know.
This 2-minute video, the guy is saying, when you start putting men competing in women's sports, the guy comes out, Jay, corrects him, saying you can't have transphobia.
Don't call them boys.
Yeah, don't call them boys. He says trans girls. And then, to top it off, the host defends this argument and then tells him to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What?" So to me, what happens here is the following. What percentage of CNN viewership is going to be Democrat? Let's say 80%, 70%, whatever the number is.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the 40s, but it's okay. It's gonna be a plurality. It's not a majority.
I think it's going to be more liberals than Republicans that watch.
Yes.
Well, a lot of people watch it at the airport.
They calculate it that way. So
There's
take
still
that
people,
out.
by the way.
But watch this. But watch this. I'm actually talking.
saying it brings up the average.
But meaning the audience that goes to CNN is that audience, right?
Yeah.
You know what happens? How many of the guys that are sitting there saying, "Bro, I've been voting Democrat my entire life. What the? I don't agree with this."
Yeah,
and
I agree.
imagine a moment where you're sitting there, you and your wife are in the kitchen, honey, food's ready. Okay, babe. And you're sitting there, go, "So how was your day today?" And then you hear this guy.
Yeah, I get it.
And then you're watching like,
I get it. I've never heard anybody make a different case. I've never heard anybody say to me why it's okay that you would have a male be competing against females. I totally get it.
If they continue this way, though, Chris, if they continue this way, the argument when you're presenting and the method of you trying to gain the voters, when you do things like that, you lose in a major way, which, by the way, this is the commercial Charlie was talking about. Rob, if you want to play the clip.
Yeah, and just to be clear, they went all in on this ad.
$75 million.
And I have a thought afterwards.
Go ahead, Rob.
Support taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Now, can I say something, though? There has been this consensus by some that the culture war should be away from politics and the culture war loses elections. This advertisement, as studied now by 3 different firms as the most effective ad, is against that theory, which is that the culture war actually gave Donald Trump the edge. Now, Chris, I'll also say that ad probably was also why some young black men stayed at home.
Maybe.
Right? Because the Trump campaign deserves credit for at least saying, communicating to the audience, look, Kamala's not worthy of your vote. And it really dampened down enthusiasm. How many young black men in Detroit were excited to go vote for Kamala if they feel as if she wants to go put men in female sports? You see what I'm saying?
I totally get it. And that is a rule of politics. I believe culture wars have always been part of politics. And so the idea that it's separate and apart, I don't agree that it ever was, but it certainly isn't now.
But can it be effective? I think it can be.
100%. I mean, look, he doesn't win without it. I mean, in this race, the economics mattered as well. In 2016, he was a purely cultural proposition, and it worked. So there, empirically, we're on the same side with this. Look, here's my concern with here's why I don't like this, okay? I'll put it that way. I totally agree with the premise, okay? And I think that the manifestations of it that they were putting out there are even more effective than the sports one. That everybody gets access to a sex change in prison, that even illegal migrants get access. That bothers your sense of rightness, okay?
Of justice.
No, of justice, of fairness under law. To me, those are more powerful than the guys my size playing high school, or that guy was like twice my size, that was in the commercial, playing with girls. Why? Because that doesn't happen that much. The other two
but hold
will.
On, Chris, it happens more than you think, but even if it only happens a little, it's an affront to our sense of justice
I get
as well.
it.
Right? I mean, because...
Yeah, I get it.
And it is a tactic used by some, not you. Oh, it's not happening that much. But hold on. When an injustice occurs at the highest, for example, the NCAA swimming championship, you know what I'm saying?
It doesn't take many.
It doesn't take, or at the Olympics, or right now, the story that was cooking before the election, the San Jose State volleyball team,
right? All
these teams are forfeiting. I mean, that is at the highest levels of the NCAA. And so, yeah, I mean, look, we don't know to the exact rapidity that it is happening, but even if it happens once at an NCAA championship level.
I get it. Now, where I had more of a problem with this is the immigrant crime issue, because to me, like on this one I get because it's a value play. On the immigrant crime thing, I was like, hey, you don't have to make boogeymen out of them. There are people already very wary of them. Our crime problem in this country is not immigrant motivated, illegal immigrant motivated. I don't think you have to exaggerate things. The truth is often enough. the southern border is a nightmare. The Democrats allowed it to stay that way and actually exacerbated the problem. That's enough. My complaint with Trump was you don't have to demonize the people who are coming over here. The truth is enough for you.
But would you acknowledge that them coming over, they committed a crime?
Oh, yeah.
Well, so then they're criminals.
By definition, I know, but
they're definitionally criminals.
I know, but that's juicing the statistic. He's talking about raping, murdering, those crimes.
We can get to that, but there is something to be said that if I just like show up in your living room uninvited.
It's absolutely wrong. Unless somebody is chasing you across the border with a gun. Your life is in jeopardy. Otherwise, it's a crime.
You know that's not happening, right?
It's a crime. It's almost always economic, and it is always a crime to enter illegally. No question about it. What you do about it is what we should be talking about. Not here, but I mean, we should be talking about what do you do, how are you going to do it, and getting it done.
Fair or unfair, in politics, certain stories and narratives will end up defining a race. With George H.W. Bush in 1988, it was the Willie Horton ad against Dukakis. Donald Trump, to a lesser extent, had stories like Laken Riley, who was brutally murdered in Athens, Georgia, or Rachel Morin, who was hunted down in a hiking trail by an illegal alien, a mother of, I think, of four kids. And so, like, those stories aren't misrepresentations. They're real things that happened. And again, what is the vibe? Because Kamala's talking about vibes a lot that Trump played into, is that you guys are not doing well, and for whatever reason, we're allowing all these people in an unregulated fashion. Right. And again, what does it get back to? This was Trump's brilliance. That ad, the immigration question, it's an affront to our instinctive, God-built, programmed attunement of justice, right or wrong. People say that's not right.
When you can find an issue where it's hard for people to disagree with the position, you're in a very good space. And immigration. It's been on poll preferences before, but it's never been like a main thing the way it has the last couple of cycles. And I think that has been a huge differentiator that has been beneficial to the right / Trump, which is really that far left explanation of open borders. It's very hard to find a Democrat who's in power, who's in favor of an open border. But the perception that, well, Trump had this set of rules. You came in and you got rid of all of them because they were his, and you did nothing to replace it to deal with the problem, and it all got worse on your watch. It's really hard with anybody to disagree with that. It's demonstrably true. And then the issue, because it's politics and it was made into a powerful narrative, became really important to everybody. And everybody, Governor...
What state?
Texas Governor Abbott.
Yeah.
You got to put him on your list. And I should have thought of him. Him sending illegal migrants to other states was a genius political move. You can talk about the humanity of it. But because now it made these other populations. Look at New York City. We never talked about that before.
For the record, it wasn't just because of Abbott. Joe Biden and the DHS also, they do flights out from the ports of entry. Right, so it wasn't just red state governors.
Right, but he did it with an intentionality.
Yeah, there was some political.
And DeSantis
there
too.
was some political
smart.
Theatrics to it.
It was
However,
smart.
The policy of the Department of Homeland Security is that you go to a port of entry, and we will give you a flight to 30 cities of your choosing.
Yeah,
and so it did nationalize the immigration question.
And I agree with both. And look, catch and release is another one of those things that it is hard to be in favor of as a principle. So what, you're going to catch somebody doing something wrong and you're going to let them go and hope they come back and probably get kicked out of the country.
Can I ask you a question, Chris? Why do you think the Democrats had such a passive border for the last 4 years? If it's so insane, why do you think that is?
Several reasons, okay? One, because solving that problem is not as useful to them until now as weaponizing the problem. And I believe that about both sides, that it allowed Democrats to say, boy, do you people hate people. You are anti-American. You don't even love immigrants anymore. You toxic whiteys. And it allowed the right to say, you people are crazy. You do not use your brain. There is nothing good about what's pouring over the border. And I really believe that's a big motivator in why neither side, Obama had both houses, did healthcare, didn't do this. Nobody has, when they've had the chance, has tried to do this except late in the game this last cycle, which everybody saw through. Second reason, they do have a left flank issue. They do have a left flank issue that is hyper sympathetic to the suffrage of those people and believe that you should just be welcoming all in. That's what this country is. That's what it is. It's best. The main reason, though, was in politics, what they call paralysis by analysis. So the numbers start going bad. They know in Biden administration, it's because they relaxed those home country agreements and the other executive orders. Now the problem is theirs. So what you do in politics 9 times out of 10 is ignore it and focus on something else instead of owning and fixing, because owning gets you owned.
I mean, but if you know that 10,000 people a day are coming into your country and you ignore it, how is that not treason?
It's not treason.
No, but
because,
just like, let's look at it analytically, non-politically. You allow 10,000 people to come in and you just ignore it. How are you not fulfilling your obligation to the country?
Well, you could argue that it is or even malfeasance. Treason, no. Treason is a defined crime where you're giving comfort to an enemy. You're assuming that all of these people are therefore enemies, which they aren't.
The cartels are enemies.
Well, but they're not all cartel people.
But enough are to...
Not to be treason. But it's definitely political malpractice. It was definitely wrong. And the cartels, I think, are a great emphasizer of that point. And fentanyl, which got very little attention.
But again, I don't want to dwell too much on the treason thing. I'm not grilling you. I'm just trying to understand, because you talk to Democrats a lot, and you know many.
And I'm
of them.
okay being grilled, by the way.
No, I have my own speculation, of which is nothing but that. How you can say that you're governing a country and you're spending all this money on Ukraine and all this stuff on abstractions, and you just are kind of, at best, indifferent to your own nation being overrun.
You know what I would say to that? Here's what I would add to that, Chris. Charlie earlier said, hey, what's the number one reason? What do you think? He says, buying Twitter. I'm like, you know what? I agree. And my reason for saying yes is because if Twitter was still owned by Dorsey, ran by the old guy, I don't remember his name, the CEO, a lot of people wouldn't be back on. And the first domino of getting everybody, Trump back on social was Twitter, when he let Alex Jones back on, when he let Andrew Tate back on, when he let Trump back on, and Trump wouldn't tweet because he was still on Truth, and Facebook follows, Instagram follows, everybody else follows, right? Mm. If that doesn't happen, we don't hear the counter arguments to everything. And we can be gaslit into believing that nothing's really going on with the border. Then that opens it up where someone like me, I run a big, insurance agency, and what my day looked like is every day people would bring me things and says, watch what he did. That's not compliant. And eventually the bigger the insurance company becomes, you're all becoming a compliance officer. Trust me, it's not fun, but you're constantly trying to see who's in the right and who's in the wrong. And all I do throughout the day is hear 2 arguments. Well, here's what they did, and they should have given us the insurance policy. Really? Yeah. What else? Anything else you want to tell me before I go ask him questions? These are the 2 facts you need to know. Perfect. Hey, what happened here? Da-da-da-da-da. He didn't tell me that. Yeah, what else? Da-da-da-da. Can you show me proof? Yeah, here's the email. Can you show me the text? Got it. Hey, you didn't tell me about it. Well, yeah, but it's not fair. You like him more than I said, no. Now you're getting emotional. He has a better argument than you do. Take all the emotion aside. Leaving the border open, you're the border czar, and then later on you want to run and you're not. Hey, kids competing, boys competing with... There's so much of this that the person that's not involved in politics, that I don't need to have 45 years in politics or 60 years to say, no, common sense, this doesn't make sense. No, common sense, this doesn't make sense.
You have to be right because of what we just saw in the returns.
Well, it's not about I have to be right. I think the American people who don't have time to follow politics, but they've lived a life long enough where they trust common sense, sit there and say, that's the party of common sense. You don't make any sense. I can't vote for you because you don't make any sense with the border, with the economy, with marriage, with the way you're okay with these guys competing. To me, that's the part. If the Democrats today don't make adjustments and they stay arrogant thinking and Obama can come and save them, Obama no longer has the voice he used to have. By the way, the report comes out, Rob, and if we're on this border thing, let's do this before we go to the next one. They announced that Tom Homan is officially the director of immigration in law enforcement, right. The Border Czar. And when that was announced, I think about a year and a half ago, we talked about, Rob, that if Trump gets elected, if you can go on Twitter, Rob, just play that clip from the podcast. I said, if Trump gets elected, this guy's going to be the Border Czar. And if he does, this is the wrong guy. They don't want this guy to be. And go ahead and play this clip. And then you'll see him going up against AOC and how he handles AOC. Go ahead, Rob.
If Trump wins, this guy is going to be back running the border. And I want to remind you guys who this guy is when he sat down with AOC and AOC tried to grill him.
Yeah.
And watch what happened to AOC when she tried to grill a
Common
man
sense.
who knows the law.
You get a
DUI. Watch. It's just entertaining. Go ahead.
Of the many that you recommended family separation,
I recommended zero tolerance.
which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested with a child.
Bartender.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan, with
family.
all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
What?
When you're in the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
You can pause it right there.
The Attorney
See, there's
General.
nothing that can be said. So the average person watches this, and let's just say, by the way, I know a lot of people are going to think this is weird. I actually like AOC. I know it's going to sound weird. I actually like AOC. I think AOC, every once in a while, she has a little bit of the anti-establishment in her. She doesn't like the Pelosi. She doesn't like the Schumers. She's a socialist. She's completely on the opposite side, but she's also not the most establishment left person. Sometimes she makes some decent arguments. But you watch AOC, you're like, you know what? She gives me the vibes that she wants to be the working people. But she's also bought into a philosophy where she faces a guy like that with common sense who loves America. Boom. Stomped. See, I think the American people right now are glad that guy is in. And Charlie, maybe give us an update because you're working with some of the counsel on who's coming in on the team.
Yep, that's why I keep checking. I'm not being rude. It's literally happening.
I totally
in real
get
time.
it.
I want to just
give us an update. Give us an update on what's going on there.
First of all, I mean, I've never been more encouraged ever. I've only been involved in 2 transitions if you count this one. There is this constant repetition at Mar-a-Lago right now about we need to fulfill the mandate, and it doesn't matter anything else except what did the voters select and what is going to allow the president to fulfill the mandate that voters gave him. I think his picks so far have been terrific. I do encourage people, unless you see it on Donald Trump's Truth Social, it is not verified, okay? So
You're talking about who's going to be in the administration.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, some people say, well, Rubio selected. Well, it very well might be, but that's not verified yet. Okay. And there's a lot of Twitterati chatter right now. And you guys got to, if you don't see it on Donald Trump's Truth Social, there is an exhaustive process to get it on Trump's Truth Social, and then it's signed, sealed, and delivered, right? So I just want.
It's an ironic situation because usually that is the last place I would go to know.
But right now I could just tell you that there's a whole process.
Eric Trump also said that last night on Hannity when Hannity asked him about Rubio, and he says, "Look, if my father hasn't said it, it's not verified."
Which I also, please.
Are they worried about taking too many sitting lawmakers?
Well, that's my concern, which is public, is that, again, this is nothing private, is that we're going to have a 2 or 3 seat majority in the House. So already out of the gate, we have Elise Stefanik and Mike Walls, which very well could get us down to a 1-seat majority. Right. So yes, that is a concern. Senate is not as much. However, you do then trigger potential special elections, and we know that with the tale of Jeff Sessions of Alabama, you could actually lose a Senate seat with a really amped up Democrat Party. I think that's a big concern. Whether or not my concern gets internalized or gets heard is a separate issue. But I think that if you have too many special elections, you allow a desperate Democrat Party that obviously has a lot of money to get newfound momentum while you're trying to actually get your administration off the ground. So that is definitely a concern of mine. However, you have to build your cabinet. That's your priority. I think Elise Stefanik is terrific. I think she'll do great.
Right, but you don't want to build your cabinet and lose the majority.
Which conceivably it could happen.
Because then you can't do anything.
Yeah, if you aren't. The difference is this, is that the Senate you can immediately replace with a governor appointment. The House does not have such constitutional ability.
Right. It's state by state with the Senate, though, right? The governors replace, and then whether they give them the full term or a special election is state by state.
However, it is an immediate fill of a vacancy that is in the U.S. Constitution. However, a House of Representatives member does not get a vacancy filled by a governor appointment. So it remains vacant until a special election, which is a very important technical difference. So, for example, if Marco Rubio does end up getting Secretary of State, not verified yet, everybody, Governor DeSantis the next morning can say, XYZ.
So you don't lose the seat.
You don't lose the seat. The House of Representatives, Elise Stefanik, Governor Hochul does
That's
not.
a very important distinction to know the difference between those two things.
Yeah,
very.
Governor Hochul doesn't replace.
Yeah, because you're picking your people who are you think are the right people, but you may be depleting the team that you need.
Yeah,
correct.
So it's an interesting thing. And also, your point about look at it in truth, it's part of the blessing and curse of social media. Your TikTok, when we were looking at it, you got 5 million followers, which is a really big number on TikTok. But your views are way, way beyond your followers. That is the blessing and curse of social media, is that things get put out, and if they're good for you, great. If they're bad for you, terrible, because it'll be seen a gazillion more times than even the people who are looking at you, which is something that can be weaponized. And, I don't know the answer to it. I really don't. It's easy to say, and the media loves to do this. The media loves to hate on itself, which is, something you realize when you've been in it for a while. So they're enjoying very much now saying digital media, podcast, that's where it is. That's where it is.
Can I interject on that, though? And I
Go
want
ahead.
your thought, Chris. So I have an opinion that the next wave, the American people will not reward a presidential candidate with their vote if they cannot sustain a 3-hour uninterrupted podcast like Rogan or this one. I think that is the new standard. I think the days that Meet the Press or sitting down with 60 Minutes for a 15-minute interview, I think those days are being sunsetted. And I think the new normal is that you have to earn my vote by sitting down with Joe Rogan for 3 hours, sitting down with PBD. Because here's what long-form podcasting does. There's no breaks. It could go any direction. There's a million different ways, and therefore very difficult to prepare for. So you get a very, very accurate picture of who the individual actually is.
I think you are correct that the expectations of the electorate are changing. I think that forum is unknown at this point. Joe Rogan is certainly not Mike Wallace. Okay, so
I don't diminish Joe. I think Joe Rogan is way smarter than people give credit for.
I'm not saying he's not smart. I'm saying, look, I watched every second of him with Trump. Okay, I've watched 50 hours of Joe Rogan.
I think
he calls it a conversation for a reason. By the way, I'm a big fan of conversation. I do a lot more of it now than I used to. I used to just do testing sessions because I didn't have the time.
Fair enough. No, I know that.
So I had to zero in. I'm not denigrating Joe Rogan. His success speaks for itself. What I'm saying is, I don't see him as a legit vetter of
I disagree.
people.
Can I say something on that?
I disagree, but I want PBD to go.
Yeah, let me say something on that. So, when I was coming up in the financial space, I had such a fear of asking myself, dude, I don't have a finance degree. I'm sitting in a class with Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, guy sitting to my left in my class of Morgan's at Mark Hopkins Hotel, San Francisco, because 9/11 happened, so we couldn't go to World Trade Center. They sent us to their office in San Francisco. You know what the kid's name was sitting to my left? That was a new advisor with Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. Ted Williams III. I'm sitting, I'm like, how the F am I going to compete with your market? This guy goes and presents, hi, I'm Ted Williams III with Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. I'd like to talk to you about your defensive strategy when it comes onto your investment. Do you have 30 to 45 minutes to spend time with me? Of course. Do you have any stories? I'd love to tell you some stories. Hi, I am Patrick Bedavid, coming to you from Iran, and I want to tell you how I can give you some offensive strategy on your investment. Who the F are you? Did you say Iran? Yes. Hell no, you're not coming to my house, right? So I'm like, how the hell are you going to compete with these guys? This guy, finance degree, and then I go in and I realize, no. That fooled you. Outwork, out-improve, out-strategize, outlast, and common sense. Very simple. Maybe the political party, if you set aside the left, right, center, and we gave a score to common sense. I saw a clip by this lady. Rob, if you can prepare this clip. She's a political analyst. She goes to buy a bottle of wine, and she's talking to the person. I want you to, this is how I feel sometimes, people that are in this business of politics for so long that they think so highly of themselves that they're pompous, arrogant, and play this clip. Look at the reaction, how she talks. Folks, tell me how likable this personality is. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so we're closing in on almost 5 p.m. Eastern time, and
this is
I've been tracking everything that's been going on across the country today. And my most important encounter was when I went out to get my champagne. I was talking to the guy in the store, of course, asking him, did he vote? And he said he did early voting, and he asked me if I early voted. And he asked me, why I was getting the champagne. And I said, because I'm going to be toasting Madam President tonight. And he just looked at me with kind of like a smirk on his face. And I said, she's going to win this, right? And he says, oh, well, it's very, very close. And I said, no, it's not. He says, well, what do you mean? I said, no, it's not. The women of America are making their voices heard. Reproductive rights is what it all comes down to. And the women are voting in numbers relative to men that are unbelievable. She's won this. And I said to him, she's going to take every one of the swing states plus Iowa. And he said, oh, but the numbers are so close. I said, I'm a political analyst.
I'm a political analyst.
Right now, the numbers are there. She's taking this election. And then I said to him, you realize, and he didn't tell me who he voted for, but of course I knew. And I said, you do realize you wasted your vote, right? And I didn't care. And I walked out with my bottle of champagne and happily walked home. Bye-bye.
By the way,
how is she doing now?
Well, I would love to see her go back to that same liquor to buy that champagne.
She's probably been buying a lot of liquor.
By the way, it's not champagne. It's much harder stuff than that.
It's probably absinthe. But going back to it, see, to me, that lady is so indoctrinated. She probably went to the right school. She probably did everything the right way. She is so, brainwashed into her thinking. Then you got a guy like this, okay, a Joe Rogan, where, some people say, well, listen, like, even you were complimentary of us earlier, like, political analysts, all this stuff. I think Charlie, for sure. I'm just a regular business guy.
No, you're a big deal. You know that.
But in the business space, I have my own opinions and my thoughts on how I'm processing issues. And you see this guy brings Trump in. 40 million views. The next day, J.D. Vance. 15 million views. The next day, which was my favorite of all the podcasts, Fetterman. And it didn't perform that well. But that was my favorite, Fetterman.
Yeah, but there's a reason that Trump does 40, Vance does 15, and Fetterman does 5. And it also shows that the draw isn't Joe.
So it's Fetterman.
Look, I'm not insulting him.
And then
I'm
after
saying he's
Fetterman,
got a great platform.
Musk comes in. But I think the
numbers went back up.
Hear me out, though. When in baseball, we watched Moneyball the other day for the 50th time. You know why I freaking love that movie?
Jonah Hill.
I love. By the way, he's the only speaker, Billy Bean, that I've paid 3 times to come and speak at our events. And he's the only guy that told me, I'll come, Pat. Just please don't turn on the camera. He doesn't like the camera.
Wow.
And we never record. But he's ridiculous when you bring him to the event. I freaking love Billy Bean.
Wow,
right?
I've never met him.
And here's why I love Billy Bean. And I want to get to my point. Billy Bean comes in and goes to Jonah, and he's in that room with Cleveland Indians. And he's like, hey, I'll give you Rincon or whatever the guy's name is. No. Yeah, and $200,000. What do you think? And then the guy, he looks at Jonah. Jonah's like, he said, no, we're not going to do it. And he's like, Brad Pitt's looking at the guy and said, what just happened right now? Okay, forget it. Just no money. Just give me the pledge. He's like, who the hell is that guy? Then he goes to that guy. He goes to his desk. He says, hey, what just happened in there? Who are you? What's your background? Who's your father? Who's your uncle? Who played in the major leagues? Says nothing. What'd you do? Do you like the game? No, I'm not a baseball guy. What the F just happened? That day, Chris, is when baseball realized the most important stat in baseball isn't home run, not doubles, not RBIs, not stolen bases, not ERA. The most important data in baseball is on-base percentage. Do you know what's happened the last 4 years? The most important stat in politics is common sense, baby. And Joe's got a lot of it. I think that's what it is.
I'm not disputing that. Yeah. I'm just saying, to Charlie's point about what the future of the process is, I think you're going to see a lot more, what do they call us now? Talent. All right, you're going to see a lot more personalities. You're going to see a lot more people with ideas enter that space from other spaces, like Patrick, by the way, who will come in with an acumen, and they'll be conducting interviews that will be longer. I don't know about 3 hours, but I mean, they'll be longer. I struggle to get through watching, let alone participating. But I agree with you that it's an absolutely legitimate space. I also believe that Joe Rogan, to his credit, is a one-off. I don't know if a year from now or 2 years from now he'll be as dominant. That's not fair, really, to say it, because as this space expands, you can't expect somebody.
He's kept his throne for a couple of years.
I know, but I think now you're seeing a period. Look, Tucker has challenged him a couple of different times in terms of the metrics. Why? A different level of talent coming into that space has a different level of draw. So I agree with you. I think that the space is very vital. That's why I've been in it. When I came back, when I got shit canned by CNN, my first move was not to go back on TV. I frankly thought I wouldn't go back on TV. If I didn't believe in what the News Nation guys were doing, I wasn't going to go back, not for the best reasons, but personally, I guess my ego was so damaged by getting shit canned that I was like, well, what can I do that would restore, what job could I take where I'd feel like I'm back? Mm-hmm. I've done all these jobs already. So I went into the podcast because I believe that it was a way more organic space, and I sensed that people were highly anti-establishment, and that space gives you that.
Tom, John, and I'm going to go to a couple of these things that we still have 45 minutes to go through. When I think about media, I don't sit there and say, Fox News, CNN, the establishment mainstream media. Not necessarily. The only reason why we say that is because they all get locked in. Pfizer, COVID, Russia. That's why it's called establishment. But if I'm seeing a guy gets up there and is like, what the hell are you talking about? No, I disagree. Within the same platform, and you're allowing for the conversation. I don't care if it's cable network or podcast. We just want that discussion.
Yeah, I totally get it.
So and this is why I'm complimentary of News Nation. I didn't, by the way, nothing against them. I didn't know about News Nation until you told me about News Nation. And we start talking about and now you want to know what my number one is right now? I go to News Nation first before I go to these other guys.
Well, you better. We're friends.
It's not even the friendship part. It's because I think
better be part of it.
You bring me in, but now I'm seeing some of the stuff that's happening that I can at least see the conversation. So here's the point with Rogan. Rogan gets the request, and he'll explain here what is. Rob, is this the one that he's explaining Kamala's request? So here's Rogan describing what Kamala's camp is asking if they choose to do the podcast. Go for it.
This is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to Kamala Harris. I'm like, I bet there's a person in there. I bet I can get to that person.
Yeah.
I wanted to find that person. I don't want to hear all the speeches. I don't want to hear, I was raised middle class. I don't want to hear any of that shit.
She's a roller skater. You know that?
No, I would love to find that out.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to her about all kinds of shit. I literally said, because there was a few restrictions of things they didn't want to talk about. But I said, I don't give a fuck. I go, get her in here. Like, whatever you want to talk about. And they want to know if I edit. I'm like, there's not going to be any editing. There's no editing.
Yeah.
We're not going to edit. But
yeah, that's the same thing they asked us. Is there an edit? You know?
I just wanted to talk. I feel like you give someone a couple of hours and you start talking about anything. I'm going to see the pattern of the way you think. That's right. I'm going to see the way you process ideas.
That's right.
I'm going to see whether or not you're calculated or whether you're just free.
Exactly.
Or are you comfortable with you, or are you projecting things? Like, she's got 80 different accents. How do you decide which one to pull out?
Yeah.
Like, she's got, she busts out different accents.
You can pause that right there, Rob. And then meanwhile, when you look at this, okay, Rob, go to Twitter. This one fellow did a tweet breaking down the numbers on how each camp spent money. If you can just go to my profile, Rob, and I retweeted it. Just go to mine. And if you can go there and go lower. So you hear this, keep going lower, keep going lower, keep going lower, keep going lower, 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 lower. You'll see it. They're right there. Okay, so Justin Blinson, let's give him a shout out. So Justin, wonder who is painting a better picture for America. Campaign spending. Trump raised $381, spent $354. Only $10.4 million was spent on staff. Kamala, billion, spent $1.37 billion. $582 was spent on staff.
Can I say something about once? Let
me just say, I'm going to come straight to you right after this because if you can, when you go like a guy asked me a question, hey, can you give some money to our charity? What percentage of the money is spent on staff? It's the first question I ask. If you can send me what percentage of the money is spent on staff, I'll give you the money. Oh, our CEO makes $670. I'm sorry, bro, I'm not doing that because the money's not going to the people. Okay. Oh, we don't spend that much money on staff. It's this much. No problem. Here's 50K. Here's 10K. Here's 100K. Based on what's being spent. When you see a structure like this and numbers like this, and then you get stories that they gave apparently Beyonce $10 million. They gave Call Her Daddy $100,000 to build a studio that they could have built for what, $5,000, Rob, or whatever that was. they gave Oprah Winfrey $1 million. I bet Oprah's pissed off that they gave Beyonce 10 times what they gave her. Now, these are numbers that we're reading about, right? Is this the one, Rob?
Yeah.
Play this clip and I'll go to Charlie. Go ahead.
$10 million for Beyonce to step up and back Kamala Harris publicly. $5 million for Megan Thee Stallion. $3 million for Lizzo. $1.8 million for Eminem. I mean, is that normally how it goes? You spend $20 million, you get yourself in debt to try to get a bunch of rich celebrities on stage? I'd never seen that. Maybe I'm ignorant of the fact, but wow.
Charlie.
A couple thoughts. So we ran one of the more criticized and now very silent outside groups that helped Donald Trump. So we had a super PAC and a 501c4, and we were attacked. And you guys can look at the articles almost every day. Donald Trump's unproven ground game. You probably saw these articles, right, Chris? I mean, it was a narrative, right, that Donald Trump does not have a ground game. Well, they were talking about what Turning Point and Elon were doing, and we would continually tell the media, like, well, we're actually delivering results. We've registered tens of thousands of people. We're chasing ballots. And the Kamala campaign was running this massive op where a lot of consultants made money, where they'd be like, well, we knocked on 18 million doors this weekend or something. And I'd say, well, how many ballots did you put in the box? I mean, how many votes did you actually bank in the early voting period? And we were able to disclose all those numbers in real time as they were happening. And something is amiss. Somebody made a lot of money on this Kamala campaign, like a lot. I don't know who, but I could tell you, being around campaigns a lot, $1 billion spent in 90 days and ending up in debt with very, very little to show for it, it's highly unusual. And it is the opposite of what happened in 2020. And again, the Trump campaign team deserves great credit. In 2020, the Trump campaign team ran out of money and was bankrupt by late September. You can find that article, Trump campaign team financial woes 2020. It was like September or October. Donald Trump in 2020, he started with $1 billion cash advantage, and that team spent it almost all the way down, right? If you could go down, it's I'm sure you can find it somewhere there. Yeah, in financial peril. Yep, that's it right there. How Trump's $1 billion campaign lost its cash advantage. New York Times, what's the date there on that article?
September 7th, 2020.
My memory's right on. And that's Shane and Maggie, the two best that the New York Times has to offer on this. And literally, Trump was in a financially perilous position. The Trump campaign saved their powder and was able to then outspend the Kamala campaign the last 2 weeks. The final point I'll make is this. All those totals don't count the outside money for Kamala Harris. It doesn't count the super PACs. It doesn't count the 501c4s. And it goes to show that money cannot alone win a White House, that a movement can triumph over a well-funded machine.
Yeah, that's true. And it always has been. Look, my father lost a bunch of elections before he won one. And nobody wanted him. He was an outsider. He was an ethnic. You know, now I'm a white guy.
At a time that it was a big deal, Italian.
One generation different, right? But he had to be mobbed up. You know, Mercurial Mario, they called him, which was just a code for being an Italian guy. And it was about the people who wanted him to empower them. That's why he won. He beat Lou Lehrman in 1982, who was the head of Rite Aid drugstores. And he had all the money. He had all the cachet. He had all the polish. When they did their debate, my father made a moment with him where he shook his hand and he turned his wrist and he said, wow, that's a nice watch. Because he had like this big timepiece on. And so it didn't matter how much he was outspent because the people win. That's the beauty of our country, is that the people can still win. But it's getting harder and harder.
It should give a lot of people hope, even though you're outspent 3-1 and the media is completely against you. You could still overcome that. It goes
Although
to show
Trump's not the typical outspent guy, because
he's the most famous person ever to exist.
Yeah, because he gets so much free media attention. Although I'll tell you, one of the criticisms I got, somebody hit me with this again. It was good. It was nostalgic. They were like, Trump is your fault. I said, oh, I know, because I've been red-pilled, right? And and they said, no, because you gave him so much attention in 2015, 2016. I said, well, I'll tell you how it happened if you want to know. My boss at the time decided that a phone call interview was okay because we'd rather have access than not have access.
Totally. That's so smart. And Trump loves doing those.
And, well, he kept offering, I'll call in. Because
he just sits at his desk.
And I was like, well, no, you got to get in front of it. And we didn't have Zoom, pre-pandemic and all that. Zoom wasn't a thing. And even if it were, you weren't okay with it. And I tell you, this is easily verifiable.
Yes.
We went to the Hillary Clinton campaign and I went to the people around her and I said, He's calling in. Do you want to call in? If you want, you can come in, but you can call in. They didn't want to do it.
Think about how much time that saves you as a candidate. You get the full cable news treatment, right? No, that's a great point.
And it's very hard to, I mean, we all know as podcasters, that's why Patrick, like Rogan, takes the time and effort to have you in person. It's totally different.
Yes.
It's really hard for you to get a feel, but also to get a fix on somebody remotely, let alone on the phone. So it worked for Trump several different ways. But just like with podcasting, he said yes. She said no. And just like with the podcasts, he said yes. She said no relatively. And it's a mistake. As a candidate, you've got to say yes to everything.
But
you've got to do as much as you can.
You know what's amazing? One day, I'm sizing up all my guys on my team because I know I'm about to go on a run. This is 5 years ago. And when I'm going to go on a run, like, you know when you know you're going to work your ass off and nobody else knows? So it's like 3 years before everyone's going to find out what you're doing behind closed doors, maybe even 5 years. I mean, we're going to light it up and we're going to go. And the market's going to know what we're going to do behind closed doors. Step number one, identify who's in and who's not. No one knows I'm doing this. I call everybody who has a position of influence. And I say, so call one of my guys who was one of my agents for one of the books. I said, so tell me, sell me the vision on who you think you see me as in the next 3, 5, 10 years. We're going to do a lot of big books together. Who do you think I am? And he says, I see you as the ethical version of this guy. And I'm like, who? I see you as this guy. I said, wow. I said, anything else? He says, no. He says, I think you're going to do a lot of them. I said, got it. Cool. Hey, man, this was great. Next person. What do you envision? I think you're going to do this. Oh, okay. What do you think? I think, got it. And then I realized which one of them saw the vision long-term, which one of them didn't. Okay. So guess what? We have to bring somebody else in this position because you have a very influential position. I can't have you have this position. I'm bringing this guy in. God bless you. Wish you nothing but the best. I hope you find people you fully believe in because I'm rolling and we're going to go take over the world. You know what we're doing with insurance, with business, all the stuff that we're going to get into media. And then when you see guys that sincerely are like, dude, we're going to go take over the world. I know exactly. And then they tell you things that maybe you're not even seeing. Like Charlie. I know Charlie's going to do. Charlie's going to be very, very formidable for many years to come. I've told him this guy's going to be a candidate next 10, 20, 30 years, whatever he wants to do. This guy's very, very unique. Charlie. I don't need anything from Charlie. Charlie and I don't do business together. It's not like I'm like, hey, Charlie, let's do this deal together. There is nothing I need or want from Charlie. There is nothing. It's pure, authentic. I believe in you. Us, pure, authentic. We enjoy each other's company. More off camera than on camera. We enjoy each other's on camera, but off camera, we have a great time. My kids love you, my family. We just have a good time together, right? What Kamala Harris's campaign did to win over all these people, it's what that 88-year-old billionaire did that got Anna Nicole Smith to be his wife. I don't know if you remember that story.
Paid him?
What was his name? Yeah, paid him. Can you imagine convincing yourself, this man who was 80-something years old, whatever his age was, when he married Anna Nicole, look at that.
Howard Marshall.
Yeah. Oh, I love her. And I love him. Look at the look that she's given him. She is so in love. In that picture, Anna Nicole Smith is Beyonce. That guy right there to the left is Kamala, Howard Marshall. In that picture, Anna Nicole Smith is Eminem. That is Kamala. Anna Nicole Smith is all these other guys. That's Kamala. This is the most embarrassing, possibly the most embarrassing story to have to tell people. I'll pay you to tell people how amazing I am.
I got to be honest. I've been in a lot of campaigns. I've never heard of somebody wanting to accept performing for you. That's one thing. But to come out and endorse and speak, I've never heard of anybody.
And so we hosted President Trump twice the week before the election, once in Atlanta and Vegas. And we had the best speaker lineup you could imagine. Let me name the names. Jason Aldean, who is #1 country, of course, right? Tucker Carlson, Bobby Kennedy. I mean, we had the biggest names you can imagine. Next one, we had Carano, right? Who is one of the
Gina Carano.
Gina Carano.
Oh, Gina, yes.
Big name.
Of course.
We had Tagovailoa, right? We had like really big names. We didn't pay a single person. Not a single person. And so I don't know what world they're living in.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
I mean, and look, and Tucker, all these guys, they could demand a huge fee. You know, they said, I'm going there for the country. They said, I wouldn't charge you for this. Like, we're going there to get Donald Trump elected. I have never heard of a campaign or a super PAC this close to an election. You know what it means? It means they don't believe it.
Yeah,
it means that these celebs are not bought in and they were just looking at it as a payday.
Of course. And by the way,
Oprah, too, took $1 million and lied about it.
By the way, Oprah's probably sitting around saying, I could have collected another $9 million. Yeah. Oprah's pissed, saying, hey, you didn't pay me $9 more. I got to go back and try to collect that money.
For her, $1 million, why even charge it?
But there's different things. This is kind of like, when the lawyer does when once a year you're representing somebody that you're not taking any money from, pro bono, right? This is a cause. This is a crusade. You put an event together. Tucker's going to tell you, pay me my $150 or whatever the rate is, because it's an event. But if this is a campaign that you're going on to help,
that's correct.
It's a different story. By the way, here's a question for you. Do you think Obama paid Oprah? No
way.
She
Do you think she believed?
We would have known. We would have known.
You would have felt it. The part is, you would have felt it. There was a big difference.
She really believed in it.
She really believed,
and it was early too. She did it in the primary, if you remember.
And by the way, this is the next story I want to go on. You guys can help me out with this here to see if there's any kind of credibility behind this. So CNN reports the fact that Pentagon officials discussing how to respond if Trump issues controversial orders. And there was a secret Pentagon meeting. I don't know if there was or if there wasn't, but there's this clip here I want to play, and you tell me if there's any credibility behind this, if it's happening. Go ahead, Rob.
On discussions at the Pentagon, I don't know at what level this is. It just seems like it's informal discussions. I guess it's understandable they would have those discussions. It also, Scott, is it?
Look, I don't like this, because what's Donald Trump supposed to think? He's sitting down there, he's the president-elect, and now he's got to read in the newspaper tonight that the unelected bureaucracy of the federal government is having meetings at some level about how to thwart or countermand the commander-in-chief. I don't care if it's at the Pentagon or at the HUD or Ag Department. It doesn't matter.
This guy's a rock
star. The unelected bureaucracy of this government answers to the civilian and duly elected leadership that we just did. And what if you were in his shoes and you just won the popular vote with a clear mandate, and now you got to read that these unelected bureaucrats are plotting against you? What would you think? If they have problems, if they have problems,
there's a reason to undermine the Constitution.
If they have ideas or things, they should call the president's office and say, hey, we'd like to have some discussions for planning purposes. But secret meetings that leak, terrible way to get off to a start with the new administration.
Well, I agree that that's maybe not the best way to do it. However, Trump has set them up to be in this situation where they think that he's coming after them.
Yeah. So what do you think this is really happening?
Of course it is. It happened in the first administration. It will happen again. Part of why I'm camping out here in South Florida for the next month and a half and move my whole family down here is to try to help any way I can. Look, you might hate Donald Trump. You might think that he's a terrible person, but you should never, ever justify the undermining of the United States Constitution just because you hate Donald Trump. And by the way, Donald Trump has a wonderful team around him. Let's say Donald Trump does something you don't agree with. We have a system of checks and balances. You don't like it? Well, then get Congress to do an inquiry about it. Get the courts to stop him. But it's not that you're not going to allow this super government of Pentagon to not fulfill the orders. That is, and by the way, there's a reason for it. No, that doesn't work that way. Because all of a sudden you're going to justify the undermining of the sovereign. He is the representation of the people in the government. And basically what the Pentagon is, for example, let's take one that they'll consider controversial on corporate media. What if Donald Trump wants to end the Russian war? Well, the Pentagon won't like that. But the American people, they want it. Public opinion polls, they want it. Donald Trump ran on it. He won a decisive victory on that. But the Pentagon doesn't like it. So who wins? A bunch of guys in the Department of Defense? A bunch of guys that have been there for 20 years in careers that think we should fight Putin for the next 100 years? Or Donald Trump who won a mandate? What you're looking at right there is a preview of the coming tension of who's in charge of the country. Is it the American people or the administrative state?
Now, so we get to this point of the analysis and we're all together, right? Smells bad. So what should be happening now? My concern is this deep state stripping out thing that's going to cause a huge legal nightmare that I don't want to cover, let alone live through. If Donald Trump does things differently this time, just in a way that he enjoys, which is addressing the nation, addressing the media, nation through the media, however he wants to do it, this time should be different for him in terms of how he discusses the ideas. He was very reactionary. Now, you can say, yeah, because you guys were attacking him all the time. Okay, fair point. He has the ability now, he hears about this story. He can tweet, I'm getting rid of all of them, right?
Well, honestly, Chris, he should.
But,
I mean,
but
secret meetings against
Okay, fine. Or you can still get rid of them, right? You can always do that. If he were to say they're having meetings about whatever the issue is, okay?
And we don't know.
And we think and say, well, here's what I want, and here's what you just said you wanted from me. I think if he speaks to the people more, and I'm not saying he doesn't do this, he likes to do this. I just think that he should be engaging on what he's going to do and less about how he is perceived.
Well, I think it's fair. I think that it was his tip.
It will defeat this.
But this clip we just saw was a hypothetical. Based on the reporting, they said the Pentagon is saying if Donald Trump issues something,
right? But you know what this is. This is an invested narrative of media that he is a danger to democracy.
Of course, and they're empowering unelected people against the people. The sovereign.
Or they're just running with something that makes them right about him.
But it did happen in the first term. It happened on Afghanistan withdrawal. It happened on a lot of different things where Donald Trump was routinely undercut by the national security apparatus against things he wanted to do.
Yes.
Can I give you another example? Mark Milley famously came out when he was under Trump, and he said, I back-channeled with China against the wishes of Donald Trump to try to prevent a war with China. Do you remember that story?
Yes.
That should never happen.
Yeah.
Generals do not command the U.S. military.
Yeah, I get it. And if you think it's well-intentioned, that's fine. But you got to resign.
It doesn't matter if you think, you resign.
That's right.
He's the president.
That's right.
Mark Milley is not. The DOD chief is not, because we have a structure. And why Donald Trump won is some voters, this wasn't a primary issue, but this was for me, that the whole structure the founders put together is completely in shambles, where the administrative state runs the country and the president goes and is like a ceremonial ribbon cutting role. He kind of plays president and says hello, and you have this group of like 2,000 people that run the government. And that is the death of America if it continues.
Well, look, what you need to have is a top-down structure, right? But obviously you can't expect your president to do everything. There's a lot of delegation. There are a lot of people who are running the agenda through the lens of the ideas that he campaigned on. And both things can be true. He is the man, and if you have a female president someday, she is the woman, and the team is a reflection of them. But they do things. Rubio is going to be doing a lot of things that may or may not be exactly how Trump put it. Especially if he's smart about how he does his job.
Of course, but you can't undermine. That's a separate issue.
You can't undermine or leave.
I agree. If
undermine.
If you have a problem, then resign and protest and go write a book.
That was my beef about Kelly, who's become like a hero to the left for all the stuff he said about Trump. My point is, and I knew what his argument would be before he made it, but it was, you should have been saying this stuff when you were in there.
100%.
And he says, well, but then they would have kicked me out and I couldn't have saved us. I don't buy it.
Yeah, and by the way, you are not tasked with saving the country from Donald Trump. The country wants Donald Trump.
Right.
And I have to go back to something. A popular vote mandate is very, very rare and very unexpected. And I don't care.
For a Republican.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. For a bunch of Democrats to stay at home, they say, oh, no, because Democrats. It doesn't matter. He won the popular vote and the electoral vote. The people want him. He won on the issues. He won despite all the propaganda. It wasn't like 2016 where it was a sneak attack. This was the most talked about expected election outcome, and people heard every reason not to vote for him, and they still did. And
Charlie, question. So when I had the president, he asked him a question. I said, so undecided voters. And he says, there's no undecided voters at this point. I'm like, okay, interesting. So when he say there's no undecided voters at this point, I think there's probably some, but I want to know, what do you mean by that? What? Let me ask the question. I really want both of you guys to give me your feedback. I'm going to come to you first. So was it more there is not undecided voters versus no? How can you activate this audience to come out and vote that they typically don't? It goes from 13 to 16%. How can I activate these guys that are like, yeah, I'm not interested in voting, to go out there and, like, I had Eddie Hearn on yesterday, one of the greatest boxing promoters of all time, right? And Eddie said, he had a fight where I'm like, what's the biggest loss he ever had? He said, there was this fight, I thought we were going to kill it. He says, it was a fight. It was one of the best fights for the 5% of super fans that actually follow boxing technically. But he says, not for the other guys that are just wanting to see a good fight, not the 95%. And he says, my job as a promoter is to activate you based on a story that I sell that you want to come see that fight, right? How much of it is undecided voters? How much of it is activating new audience that was going to sit this out to come out and say, oh, hell no, I'm going to come support this guy? Which one do you think it is?
So in election, there's two types of elections. There's persuasion elections, and then there's turnout elections. And turnout elections typically are midterms, or they are one-off and special elections. This is the first presidential election since probably 2016, but that was a different issue, where it was pure turnout, where there were because everyone really had their mind made up on Donald Trump largely. However, I disagree. There were still some late breakers and undecided people. I do think that pool was less than 2%, though. I think so. Donald Trump's
2% is a lot, though.
And Donald Trump's campaign strategy, of which we helped execute on the ground in some of these states, was that, guys, don't spend your time knocking on doors about a suburban soccer mom who's weighing her options. Instead, because that takes 9 contacts to try to get her. 9 points of contact on average. Conversations, discussions, and they could be 30 minutes on it. Instead, turning point, go spend your time in very Republican areas where there are non-registered or what we call disengaged voters. People that like Trump, like his worldview. For example, the bro vote, right? And so this is where we spent our time, and we harvested, not ballot harvested, but we harvested in a very, very powerful way. At Arizona State University, for example, we registered thousands of young men to vote in fraternities. And that was way easier than us going to try to win over swing voters. And we did a little bit of that, but generally the Trump campaign was brilliant because they threw the Republican consultant playbook out. The Republican consultant playbook was spend all your time on the middle, on those like middle 15% swing voters and go all in. Trump campaign said, well, why don't we just make our base bigger? Why don't we just make the people who love us the most? And so what they looked at was demographics. And they realized if we can make the electorate 3% more masculine, and by the way, they were so smart to do this.
This is Susie?
This is Susie and James Blair and La Savita. And they were so smart because they said, wait a second, what is more important than race? Whether or not you're a man or a woman actually dictates your political affiliation far more of a correlation than your race. So they de-emphasized racial politics and they emphasized more of a masculine machismo approach. And boy, did it work. And not only did it work, you're running up against a woman, so it's easier to kind of make that argument. And so I don't mean to monopolize the time.
But this is really interesting. Keep going.
And so what the Trump campaign then did, the Republican consultant playbook that Karl Rove basically authored was everything is about high propensity. So there's 2 types of voters, high propensity and low propensity voters. A high propensity voter is typically college educated, lives in the suburbs. You know, they watch Chris, they watch CNN, they have an income over $100,000 a year, they have 2 kids and a picket fence, and they go to soccer games and they don't commit crimes. You know, that type of demo, right? High propensity voters is where the Republican Party has always been focused. Okay, but Trump came in and he said, no. We're going to focus on low propensity voters. The welder, the electrician, the carpenter, the police officer, or the person that's just not registered to vote. Where I thought that Donald Trump was going to win, and I wasn't as confident as anybody else, okay, was when I started to see the voter registration surge across the country. In the summer before, this last summer, new people that were registering to vote were registering at a clip 3-1 versus Democrat. In Pennsylvania, for the first time ever.
Wow.
In Pennsylvania, for the first time ever, we had every county in Pennsylvania, we were out registering Democrats for the first time ever. Now, mind you, what Josh Shapiro did as governor of Pennsylvania is he put in a thing called motor voter, which means you automatically get registered to voat. They thought that was going to help Democrats.
When you get your license.
When you get your driver's license. It helped Republicans because of think about who's not registered to vote. It's typically lower propensity voters and PBD. Here's the kicker. Where do these people get their information? Lower propensity voters get information on TikTok. They're not watching CNN. They're not sitting. You know why? These folks are darn tired by the time they get home. They're not turning on cable news. They're watching NFL football games. They're the ones that are not going to be able to quote to you, Marbury. They're not. By the way,
it's also this.
Yeah, it's also the phone. So what Donald Trump campaign did is they hacked the 2024 election, not in a way that people would think, where they said, wait a second, everyone has a supercomputer in the right-hand pocket. Why are we worried about what CNN is saying or MSNBC is saying? Why don't we win the information war? And then finally, the kicker, they said, why don't we go on the most ambitious, over-the-top, low-propensity voter communication strategy on Theo Von, Joe Rogan, Nelk Boys, Logan Paul, influencer strategies, right? And so what they said is there's this whole reservoir.
Freaking brilliant.
And the final kicker, my mandate at Turning Point was very simple. Charlie, turn Trump supporters into voters. And that's what we did.
By the way, Newsweek validates this. I just read this article while you're speaking. Pull this up. Look at this. Donald Trump flips first-time voters.
Bingo.
Okay.
And this changed the whole election.
Watch this. Go a little lower. This is very important data. Second paragraph. Among the voters asked by NBC, 56% of first-time voters chose the Republican. Over 43% of first-time voters chose Kamala. But 4 years ago, 64% of first-time voters picked Biden. 32 chose Trump. So that's the part. It's the selling and the conversion and the baptizing and getting the new people instead of, man, that is brilliant because to a business guy, I go into insurance, everyone's recruiting agents from each other. You come to me, I'll give you 100%. You come to me, I'll give you 110%.
Bingo.
Like, forget about it. We're going to go recruit non-licensed agents.
That's what he did.
What a freaking move, bro.
And the the Democrats doubted us because they said, oh, no, the reservoir has been tapped. There's no, like, people love Trump or they don't. And you know where the kicker was for me? And then I reaffirmed Susie's strategy. I went to a Trump rally and I would just take selfies and I'd ask, are you registered to vote? Registered to vote? 1 out of 20 would be like, I think so. 1 out of 20 PBD. When we hosted the Bobby Kennedy event, okay, we had 12,000 people show up. We registered 900 new voters at that event. Said differently, 1 out of 15 people that showed up at a Bobby Kennedy event in August before the election in Arizona were not even registered to vote.
CTA mentality. And call to action, CTA mentality. You're here, you bring them in, baptize
and we
them.
Converted them.
That's the key.
Conversion.
That is such a, by the way, that's business mindset. That's operation. It's not just gibberish and talk. You're converting them.
So and sorry, Chris, I don't mean to go too far on this, but it's like if you don't like the composition of the electorate, then change the electorate.
Right. Let me ask you, what is the first-time voters? Do we actually know how many it is, or we don't have that number?
It's millions. I mean,
is it in the millions?
Oh yeah,
like millions, like 5 or like 1 to 2?
No, he'll get you a raw score on it.
But if you count Gen Z, it's definitely it's probably over 10 million. But what's even more interesting is the non-Gen Z first-time
Can you
voters.
just ask ChatGPT, Rob, see if it tells us what it is? Brandon, if you can check to see what it is and send it to us.
Grok is even better, by the way. Just for the record.
Part of it is that this is not the first time this has been done.
Obama did it.
Yeah.
Really well.
And, it used to be done very grassroots level of trying to get new people into
8
vote.
million.
Yeah, that's about right, yeah.
And he got 56 to 40. Dude, you can't. I mean, that's it. Wow.
So we expanded the pie.
Wow.
And then we won more of that pie. This was always where Democrats benefited. Think about it. Democrats benefit more with younger people and we said, no. We're going to win with first-time voters.
And you know what that is, Chris? Here's what that is. That is hard. That's a lot of work. Yesterday, I saw Eric Trump on Sean Hannity. And if Eric's watching this, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but it comes with respect. I just want you to know this. I look at Eric's face, and I look at my dad. I say, you know what that face looks like? He says, what? He had a suit on. He looked freaking money. I said, let me tell you, I know what that face looks like, and no one's going to know except for the people that are in the game. That's the face of a guy that worked 18 hours today. You could just see it on the look. That's the face of a guy that hasn't had a chance to celebrate the victory yet. These guys are freaking workers. The way Eddie Hearn's father, Barry Hearn, I'm fascinated with this guy's father. He had 10 rules for life. And he said, it's better to be born lucky than good looking. Tell the truth. It's easier than telling lies. Sheer work ethic can make you look like a genius. What these guys did, the level of work ethic they put, President Trump looks like a genius right now. Susie Wiles looks like a genius right now. But behind closed doors, you can tell their entire team worked their asses off. The reason why I opened it up with that video is because there's no way in the world a person cries like that. My dad told me one of the greatest stories of all time. It gets me emotional every time I tell this story, but I've told this thing a few thousand times. It doesn't do it anymore, but it still makes me think about it. Ready for this story? I'm a young kid. He says, son, I'm going to teach you how to be a man. I'm going to tell you a story. I said, what's that? He says, my dad didn't teach me a lot about math and politics, stuff like that. He's a simple man, but hard work, character, keeping your word. He says, one day father wakes up, wants to teach his son to learn about hard work. Kid is 10 years old. He says, son, before the end of the day today, you got to make $5. Dad, I'm only 10 years old. Before the end of the day, you got to make $5. Dad, I'm telling you, before the end of the day, you got to make $5. Dad goes to work. Son goes to mom. Mom, you want me to go in the streets at 10 years old and make $5? Honey, don't worry about it. Here's $5. Just tell your dad you made $5 today. Dad comes home. Hey, son, did you make your $5? Yes, I did, Dad. Give me the $5. Gives the $5. Throws the $5 in the fireplace. Burns. Kid runs to mom. Mom comes in and says, what is wrong with you? that says, the reason why you got more upset than him is because you paid him the $5. Next morning wakes up, son, you got to make $5 today and don't go to your mom. Dad goes to work. Son goes to mom. Mom, he says, hell no, he's going to burn it. I'm not giving it to you. So the son becomes a beggar. That's phase 2. He goes outside. Hey, uncle, dad's going, hey, aunt, hey, neighbor. He begs for $5. Next day he comes home. Hey, son, did you make $5 today? Yes, I made $5 today. He shows him $, throws the money in the fireplace. Son starts crying, but no reaction from mom. Says, I know you didn't give him $5, but I also know you didn't make that $5. Listen to me, kid. You're going to make your $5 tomorrow. Next day, dad goes to work. Son goes out, knocking on doors. I'm begging you, give me a job. Anything you want, I'll do it. I need to make money. Finally, by the end of the day, one man says, for every sandbag you move from here to here, I'll give you a penny. This 10-year-old kid starts moving. Comes back, 10 o'clock at night, comes home. Dad comes up to the kid. He says, you made your $5 today? He says, no, but I made $1.80. Takes the money, throws it in the fireplace. Kid reaches in the fireplace to take the money out that he earned. Dad hugs him in. He says, son, I know for a fact you earned the money today. That's why you're like this emotional, because you earned it and it's painful. You became a man today. The Democrats begged. They didn't work. The Republicans worked their asses off. That's why it was an emotional victory for them. They busted their tails behind closed doors, and you gotta freaking respect these guys. All of them, everybody that came together. You're able to convert 56% in 2024, while in 2022 was only 32% against Biden? Dude, that's sheer hard work. 78 years old, he's on stage. We're on our live event with 2,000 people that were making a bet on what time we think he's going to hit the stage. He hits the stage at 2:26 Eastern Standard Time. He's in Eastern Standard Time. Goes up on Palm Beach Convention Center. We're making a bet. Hey, how long do you think? How long do you think? How long do you think? 1 hour, this is that. And he's up there saying, hey, Dana, why don't you say a few words? Hey, Susie, no, I'm okay. Why don't you say, hey, JD, say a few words, 30 seconds. Hey, I'm just watching everybody. I'm like, how many people right now are thinking about their pillow? How many people are like, dude, you're 78 damn years old. Go to sleep, guy.
He was up for 72 hours straight.
Do you realize the level of respect you got to have for a fighter like that? No opponent wants to do that. They just don't. Now, coming to 2024, I want to finish out with this question and we'll wrap up. We got 7 minutes left together here. Obama in 8 years flipped 1 Supreme Court seat in 8 years. And to the left, many people consider Obama the GOAT. They love him. He's their Jesus. Trump, first term, 3. They're worried about another one that could be 7-2. I'll read the story to you, okay, on what they're talking about with Supreme Court. Rob, if you can help me, tell me what story this is in. I want to wrap up with this. So,
that is page 11, Dems at war.
Perfect. Dems at war over secret Supreme Court plot to oust Sotomayor. What's this story all about? Rob, is this the clip?
This is Bernie Sanders. He was asked about this on Meet the Press over the weekend.
Okay, they're running out of time for this.
Let's play this clip, and then we'll go to you guys, and then we'll wrap up. Go ahead.
Senator, quickly before I let you go, I do want to ask you about the Supreme Court. Some Democrats behind the scenes quietly talking about the possibility, should Justice Sotomayor step down, to allow President Biden to appoint someone who's younger. She's only 70 years old. Is that something that you would support? Do you think she should step down?
No, I don't.
Have you heard any talk of this?
A little bit, yes. I don't think it's the sensible approach.
And you don't think it's a sensible approach?
Correct.
All right. Senator Bernie Sanders.
She was hoping for a different answer.
Thank you very much for your time this morning and your perspective. We really appreciate it.
Didn't give it to her. Charlie, is it too late?
They're running out of time. Also, that you don't get Manchin or Sinema as well. Remember, they have 51 in the current composition. The new Congress actually gets sworn in on January 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, they're running out of time. Plus, you got Christmas break, Thanksgiving break. They got to pass a budget and or a continuing resolution. So they got a lot of work left to do. And so to add a Supreme Court hearing on top of that, find a candidate, vet it, get it through, go to the floor. And Manchin and Sinema will almost assuredly not put up with this.
And also, McConnell would block it like he did with Merrick Garland.
Well, McConnell's not the Senate Majority Leader yet.
Well, he is until they pick a new one.
Well, no. The Schumer is Senate Majority Leader till January 3rd.
Right, but I'm saying like they can come up and make noise. Noise creates time.
Yeah, and they could definitely do parliamentary procedures. Right. I don't think this is going to happen.
Talking about McConnell, is it true that he's trying to accelerate the process of Rick Scott taking over the influence over someone else? Is that really happening?
McConnell influencing Rick Scott?
No, meaning he would rather have, if they have a Senate majority for the Republicans, he would rather have somebody on the establishment side,
without
Rick
a doubt.
Scott.
Yeah, he can't stand Rick Scott. McConnell and Rick Scott do not get along.
So who is it that he's looking at? Thune. Okay.
Thune is McConnell's pick. Cornyn is one-ish.
How much does it matter who McConnell wants?
It matters to the 26 senators that are endorsing Thune. McConnell's influence is waning, thankfully. The Senate is by far the most frustrating institution I've ever had to deal with. There are all these independent franchises that kind of march to the beat of their own drum, don't necessarily listen to their voters. Yeah. But yeah, the Senate leadership election is tomorrow, and it will tell us a lot. Do not be surprised if it goes to multiple ballots. I do not think so. So they're going to allow McCormick to sit for it, which therefore means that it will be 53. So they do the Senate leadership election as if the Senate will look on January 3rd.
Right.
So it will be 53 senators. Therefore, you need 27 to get a majority, if my math is correct. I don't think anyone has 27 yet.
All right. So if that's the case, Trump flips another one. That's 4. That is 7-2. That is a 10, 20, 30-year possibility.
Yeah. Well, not only that, don't be surprised if Clarence Thomas or Alito go get, resign as
bring a younger
heroes
person in
and get 40-year-old justice. I mean, that would be very strategic. And
which was the pressure point on Obama with RBG.
And a lot of libs are upset they didn't do that.
If there's anybody that can influence that, it's him. By the way, before we wrap up, I want to give a quick shout out to an artist that I emailed 17 years ago.
I have that in my office.
Do you really? Is John McNaughton, who has many paintings he's done. Okay, this is one of them that he did. And if you zoom in here, you'll see Trump right there in the middle. You're seeing George Washington. You see Rush, Limbaugh to his left. You'll see Tucker with the foot up. You'll see Charlie Kirk with the hand out. You'll see a bunch of different guys in there. And he just did a recent painting, Rob. If you can go to the other one.
No way, he has a new one?
Yeah, if you can go, that's Charlie right there.
Yeah, that's Elon.
And if you can go to another one, he did this one. I just bought the one of one. I just think it's an insane painting.
You know what? You're inspiring me to buy more of his stuff.
Oh, this guy is, this is the one. I click on it, Rob, to zoom in. Click on there you go. Zoom in into this one. It's called Mad America.
Wow.
Look at this. The people that are in it. Even Rogan's in it. I think I'm in the other one with you, Charlie, to your left, and I think I'm in this one away as well. If you zoom in right behind, is that the Capitol? Zoom in all the way in right there. You'll see Tucker. You'll see Rogan. You'll see Musk. You'll see myself. You'll see Joe. You see Michelle. You see Biden shaking hands with somebody. But this guy's work is
Lindsey Graham with the Ukrainian flag.
Yeah, it's, by the way, and Zelensky with the money. Go all the way to the bottom. Look at Zelensky with the money.
You got Schumer with his hands on him.
This is absolutely wild. So we're going to put the link below.
This is that's next level stuff.
I think this guy's work is great. If you like good art, this is right outside of my office in a new building, by the way, that we have. I've supported this guy's work for 17 years, and I think people need to know about it. Link will be below. And then last but not least, guys, remember, Merry Christmas. Go to vtmerch.com. Sport your Merry Christmas gear this holiday season. And if not you, buy it for your husband, buy it for your wife, buy it for your kids. Let's represent this proudly, okay? Gang, Charlie.
I wish I could stay longer. I got to do my show.
Chris, both of you guys, this was great spending time with you guys. You guys were phenomenal. Hopefully you guys will do stuff together as well. God bless everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye, bye-bye.